661. Strange on Izumi. This is good. As soon as Naruto appeared, he saw a stunned picture. I saw Ulu standing in the middle of Wen Izumi, a pair of jade hands on the chest and rubbing hard. The jade face was full of yuhi, the soft lips were slightly open, and it seemed that he was still groaning. What is this scenario? Naruto looked at her secretly. Ulu seemed to be very involved, and he didn't see Naruto, who was quietly emerging. Naruto swears that he has never seen such a Ulu. The originally short black hair turned into a long black and bright hair, which was soaked in Wen Izumi and rippling slightly. Under the cover of the fog, the expression on her face was a little psychedelic, as if enjoying, but also resentment, hazy. A pair of 46D breasts are constantly changing shape under her own jade hands, making people want to rush up and rub them fiercely instead of her. Naruto has such an idea now. His body is also very hot, he swears. This is definitely not because of Wen Izumi's heat. It seems that Wen Izumi can stimulate the desire factor of the body. Flames gradually spewed out of his eyes, and he couldn't hold back the intoxicated expression on Ulu's self-comforting expression there. At this time, Ulu's hands suddenly stretched into the water from her chest. Ripples swayed on the surface of the water. Her snow-white neck was raised high, and the voice in her mouth was melodious. If it weren't for the inability to see the content underwater, Naruto would have dived back in by now. It's incredible. Ulu actually comforted himself in front of him, also showing such an intoxicated expression. Naruto's small body seemed to be surrounded by flames, and at this moment, the hard thing below was about to explode. I don't know why, Naruto suddenly came quietly behind Ulu, and when Ulu was intoxicated, he suddenly hugged her slender waist from behind. Ah! With a scream, Ulu snapped back to his senses, and immediately began to struggle. Since Naruto was not holding him too tightly, Ulu quickly turned around. Just as the fist in her hand was about to smash down, she saw Naruto's uncomfortable expression. Naruto, Naruto! Ulu was shocked, surprised, happy and ashamed in his heart, and his mood at this moment was beyond words. Ulu, I'm here to see you. Naruto's face was very yuhi, and he didn't know whether it was because he was holding back uncomfortable or some other factor. Ulu was shocked when he heard the words, "You came to see me. But why did you appear here?" Naruto explained, "I found the slide in your room and I slid down. I didn't expect it to be Wen Izumi." Ah, is that so? So, have you come in long ago? Ulu looked startled, and then his face suddenly became dizzy yuhi. This is really bad. Did he see himself like that just now? That's right, otherwise, why would he hug him so directly? Moreover, there is still a hard thing pressing against his buttocks. This feeling makes people's heart tremble. Naruto nodded, hugged her slender waist with both hands, buried his face on her high chest and said, "Ulu, I'm so uncomfortable right now." What's wrong? Why is it so uncomfortable? Ulu was startled, and hurriedly reached out and touched his body, only to find that he was hot all over, even hotter than Wen Izumi's. Moreover, the hard objects on the buttocks under him are even hotter and scarier. Naruto really can't say it. He is only 12 or 13 years old, his body is too small, and the following is just beginning to take shape. Will it be too ghostly? Seeing his expression, Ulu was suddenly shocked, and then he cursed. Damn, I forgot. This Wen Izumi can't enter easily. However, it is too late to say everything. At this moment, Naruto's body is getting hotter and hotter, as if it is about to explode. Ulu hugged his body, came to Wen Izumi's side, and leaned him against a side. Ulu, what were you doing? Naruto's eyes were full of flames. When he came into contact with Ulu in the water, the smooth touch of the woman's body made him even more unbearable. Ulu was stunned for a while, with a big face. Yuhi, Naruto, don't talk nonsense. You didn't see anything just now. Her heart was trembling. This is really bad. She is in this warm Izumi. Wait, Naruto actually saw it. What a shame. However, I am also a woman, and now I am in my early 30s, and my physical needs cannot be met. What can I do without venting in this way? Feeling the hotness of Naruto's body and the firmness of the hard object below, Ulu's heart suddenly beat very fast. She took a deep breath, trying to calm herself down, but she was not satisfied before, and when she encountered such a sensitive thing again, there seemed to be a demon in her heart advocating temptation. Ulu, I'm really uncomfortable. Can you? Naruto finally couldn't bear it anymore. After more than 10 years, he finally couldn't control it. He reached out his hand suddenly and pinched Ulu's chest. Snow White, smooth, but full of elasticity, this long-lost touch made Naruto's heart rippling. He couldn't help rubbing vigorously. Ulu's body trembled for a while, his chest was held by Naruto's hand, and he squeezed and squeezed so hard. That strange feeling was completely different from doing it by himself, it was more exciting and more enjoyable. She couldn't help but let out a long moan, and her jade arm hugged Naruto's head, letting him fall into her arms. Naruto took advantage of the situation and opened his mouth to hold it, lingering on her chest for a long time. After a long time, Naruto finally broke free, and Ulu's face was full of intoxicated expressions. Naruto, I still want. Where did Ulu enjoy such a happy feeling? She seemed to have changed her personality, and she lost her usual calmness, and suddenly took Naruto's hand and followed her own path. Body leaned down. At this time, Naruto raised his head in discomfort. Ulu, I want it too. He felt that if he didn't vent again, the following would explode. Ulu was stunned for a moment, and suddenly felt Naruto's body straightened, and the hard thing entered between his legs at once. Oh, so hard. Ulu groaned, supporting Naruto with his hands, and then he sat down again with force. In an instant, Naruto was surrounded by warmth and softness. This long-lost feeling made every cell in his comfortable body tremble. And Ulu, entered by Naruto's beginning to take shape. The emptiness and loneliness in his heart seemed to be completely filled at this moment. His soft lips opened suddenly, and a trembling sound came from his throat. At this moment, Ulu seems to have forgotten everything, and his mind is blank. Naruto. She groaned, and her jade arms hugged his body tightly, and her body took the initiative to entangle him and exercise fiercely. Naruto was also made irrational by this kind of stimulation. At this moment, he didn't care about the relationship and the age gap between the two, he just needed to let each other fully integrate into this passion. When Izumi, the water waves rippling, and the waves are more violent. Seductive moaning, but also higher and higher. After a while, the movements of the two gradually subsided, leaving only the sound of Ulu's slight and rapid breathing. Ulu. Naruto climbed to the shore, pulled her body up from When Izumi and said, "This When Izumi has a problem." Ulu leaned on Naruto's shoulder and said weakly, "Yeah, it's my fault. This When Izumi shouldn't have let you in." Why? Because of this When Izumi, there is a shameful secret. 662. After the fact. With Ulu's explanation, Naruto realized that both of them were harmed by this When Izumi. It turns out that the water in this warm Izumi has the ability to arouse desire in the body. After Ulu discovered this place, he discovered this ability when he first came in to take a bath, so he set it up in his room. I have learned a secret passage, and when I am alone and lonely, I come here to relieve myself and vent. What I didn't expect was that Naruto happened to be here today. When he entered this When Izumi, he was also stimulated by When Izumi's ability, and he came here just when Ulu was empty and lonely. As soon as the two touched, sparks erupted immediately. This is desire. There was no way, things had already happened, and Naruto accepted the result. He didn't mind this kind of thing anyway, but he was just a little young, so he did it now. I don't know if it would have any effect. However, compared to Naruto, Ulu is very concerned now. She thinks that she has ruined her own students. They are only teenagers, not yet grown up. This made her feel extremely guilty, and wished she could even commit suicide. Naruto, it's my fault. You can just treat this as a dream. After you go out, you wake up from the dream. Let's pretend it never happened in the future, okay? Ulu said softly. Naruto couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. Did it not happen after doing it? If he meets other people, he may be very satisfied with the result, but for him, this is by no means a good ending, and he doesn't want to admit that the woman he has done with is his own. Even if this is a mistake, he will make it wrong to the end. Once you do, then you have to pay for it. Moreover, making love with Ulu is not an unacceptable thing. Thinking of this, he shook his head and said solemnly, "No, I won't agree. If something happened, then you are my woman." Ulu couldn't help but stunned, "But I'm your master." "What happened to the master?" "The master can also be my woman." Naruto opened his mouth and said, How do you call others to see us?" Ulu couldn't help laughing and laughing. This guy is actually really serious. Does he want to marry him as his wife? She is an old woman who has given birth to a child. I don't care about other people's eyes. In short, you are my woman. Naruto seemed to take this matter very seriously. Hey, don't be so serious, okay? We can continue to be masters and apprentices. No one will know about this if we don't tell each other. Ulu sighed and shook his head helplessly. Naruto suddenly smiled and said, "But I have decided that you are my woman, and we have done it, so I will take responsibility. If it doesn't happen, I will feel uneasy." Ulu's body was shocked, and he was shocked by the fact that Naruto said such a thing at a young age, and there was an indescribable feeling in his heart. This kind of touching makes people have the urge to agree to him immediately, but fortunately Ulu is not in Wen Izumi now, and her heart has calmed down. She shook and smiled bitterly. "Naruto, if you say this, I will feel uneasy too." Ah! Naruto was stunned. After a long time, he sighed slightly. "Let's go up first." He stood up, dried his clothes, put them on, put his arms around Ulu, and jumped towards the hole. Ice-shaped magic ice cable. With a wave of his hand, a chain of ice flew out from his hand. The front of the chain was a sharp hook, and the hook penetrated into the slideway on the top. Rode up and the ice rope was hooked again and again, and Naruto pulled it hard, and the two quickly rushed out of the slide and came to the ice room. Ulu's body was naked. There were some clothes piled on the edge of the ice room. She walked over to Naruto with a slightly Yuhi face and said, "Turn around." "Ah, didn't you see it all just now?" Naruto was speechless. "It's different." Ulu glared at him. Naruto had no choice but to turn around and listen to her at getting dressed. After a while, Ulu's chuckle came from behind. "Okay." Naruto just turned around, but couldn't help but stay for a while, only to see Ulu's long black hair cascading down his waist like a waterfall, wearing a snow-white fluffy coat. The collar of the coat was slightly open, and inside was a blue wrap the chest, and the hem of the coat came off directly to the ground, looking very much like a fox girl on a snowy mountain. On her face that has not receded, makes people feel heartbroken. Push. A chuckle came from her mouth. Ulu looked at Naruto's stunned expression, shook his head and laughed. "Naruto, it seems that you will also be a satyr in the future." The saliva is almost drooling out. Naruto returned to his senses, and then realized his situation, smiled awkwardly, and muttered, "You are so beautiful." Ulu was elated, pulled Naruto to sit on the ice bed, and asked him what happened outside. Naruto told her about his recent progress, what interesting tasks he had done, and that he had become an S-rank mage. Ulu couldn't stop laughing when she heard it, and she was also very relieved to see Naruto become so powerful. On the way, Naruto wanted to talk to her several times about the establishment of the relationship between the two in the future, but Ulu seemed to have forgotten that the two had sex just now, just kept telling him about the experience during this time, and asked him about the outside world. Naruto can't help it. It seems that she doesn't want to accept the relationship between the two. Suddenly, he thought of a possibility, took her hand nervously and asked, "Ulu, you don't accept this, is it because of your husband?" "Husband?" Ulu was stunned for a moment, then frowned and whispered, "I have never met my husband. Others say that I was abandoned by my husband, but I never met before I became pregnant. After him, I don't even know why I'm pregnant. How is this possible?" Naruto's face suddenly showed a surprised expression. 663. Ulu's heart. However, when he asked more carefully, Ulu didn't say anything again, and his mood seemed very low. Naruto thought about it for a while, and immediately stopped talking. He had also heard that she had a child who seemed to have died. If she hadn't died, she would be about the same age as herself. I'm sorry, Naruto apologized to her. Ulu shook his head, with a gentle look on his face, and hugged Naruto in his arms. I've been lucky enough to meet you. Naruto leaned on her and did not speak. Ulu was also a poor woman. In the town at that time, he had heard a lot of rumors about Ulu. Some people said that she was a woman who was obsessed with magic and was abandoned by her husband. Some people said that she also let her own children because of magic. Died, although her magic is very powerful, but in the eyes of others, she is always a poor and sad person. This kind of Ulu makes people feel pity in their hearts. But Naruto was curious about what she said, why she didn't even know how she got pregnant, and it was impossible for her to be raped or something. Unfortunately, Ulu stopped talking, and Naruto could no longer touch her sore spot. The two hugged and separated after a long time. A smile appeared on Ulu's face again. Naruto, finally come back once, let me see your strength. Naruto nodded and said with some worry, but how much has your body recovered now? General activities are no problem, it's just a discussion, even if you leave Shuilian for a while, it won't get in the way. Ulu smiled. It seems that she is recovering well, and if this continues, she may return to health earlier than expected. Naruto is also happy for her. Next, the two had a magic contest with each other. They hadn't seen each other for a while. Naruto's strength naturally amazed Ulu, but Ulu's magic level has also made great progress, which is stronger than before. In this extremely cold place, it has a bonus effect on the cultivation of ice magic. In addition, these days Ulu has nothing to do except practice, and has developed a lot of powerful magic. After a while of learning, Ulu sweated slightly. Naruto stopped, walked over and said, I am a little hungry, let's find something to eat. Ulu nodded, the two smiled at each other, and Naruto walked out of the ice dragon cave with her slender waist around her. Standing outside the Binglong cave, facing the cold wind, the two of them looked far into the distance, looking at the continuous glaciers, feeling the feeling that there is no one in the world at this moment, and there are only two people alone in the world, and they couldn't help but immerse themselves in it. Unconsciously, Ulu's long hair fell on Naruto's shoulders, and she leaned on him. Naruto looked at him slightly, and reached out to hug her tighter. Although he is only 12 or 13 years old, his height is also over 1 meter 6, which is not much different from Ulu. Seeing Ulu's eyes closed and intoxicated, he couldn't help leaning over and kissing her soft lips. Ulu's body trembled, but he didn't open his eyes and let him explore on his lips. Gradually, the tip of Naruto's tongue stuck into her sandalwood mouth, entangled with her clothes. After a while, Ulu opened her beautiful eyes with a panting face on Yuhi's face, moved away from the corner of his lips, glared at him and said coquettishly, Naruto, after I said it, you can't do it again. Why don't you listen? In fact, why is she not enjoying this feeling in her heart? But she was hesitating again, she already had children, how could she be like Naruto? Naruto smiled helplessly and avoided answering. Next, the two went to the glacier to look for prey. The creatures in this extremely cold place were killed. Under the power of Naruto, they quickly caught an ice bird, which is only found in extremely cold places. The species that flew in the air was difficult to catch before. This time, Naruto's strength has been greatly improved, so he finally got this delicious food. The two returned to the ice cave to enjoy the delicious food, as if they had returned to the scene where they lived together more than 2 years ago, which was very warm. However, Naruto would still leave after all, and after staying in the extremely cold place for more than 10 days, he bid farewell to Ulu. During this period, the two did not make love again, and Ulu also seemed to have guarded against him. Although he was still very gentle to him, he always stopped giving him the opportunity to get close to him. Although Naruto is very regretful, he doesn't like to be forced. In that case, let's keep it as it is. However, looking at the back of Naruto leaving, Ulu really didn't have the slightest love-hate parting emotion in his heart. Perhaps, this is only she knows. Naruto left, he brought laughter to Ulu, and brought a wonderful experience, but he also took away a lot. Ulu's heart is not the ice in this extremely cold place, but that a snow lotus surrounded by solid ice. The Magic Council, 10 people gathered together. At this time, there is a discussion about Naruto. I heard that Uzumaki Naruto of Fairy Tail accepted a 100-year mission. An old man asked. The rest of the crowd looked at each other, and one of the big men nodded and said, "Yes, that guy did accept the task and left the guild." Can you know what task he accepted? The rest were silent for a while, and another said, "He seems to have accepted that deep-sea mission. There was once a mission that wiped out the entire army of water magicians." Really? Isn't that guy crazy? Is he dying? Who knows? But his strength seems to be very strong. Even a strong man like Gildas has to fight against him seriously. Gildas. He definitely didn't show his true strength. It's beyond your own power. Even the top 10 magic wizards of the Holy Spirit dare not say that they can accomplish the task of 100 years. He's just a little devil, and he is so arrogant. Such a person can't go much in the cultivation of the devil's way. Far away. Another person shook his head and said, "I don't think so. I have almost never heard of someone at his age who can achieve such success. If there is one, I can only think of Jarav." 664. 6 years later. In the eastern part of the Aslant continent, a certain port by the sea, the city of Hirujan, walks down the street in a royal robe with a lee bag on his back. It has been 6 years since he left the trade union. During these 6 years, Naruto has traveled to almost every corner of the world, and he has seen all kinds of magic, and his own strength has reached to a very strong point. 3 years ago, he mastered the technique of combining the magic powers of the 5 attributes. 2 years ago, he found that his magic power had reached a bottleneck and his spiritual power had stopped growing. It was in that year that he made up his mind to go to the deep sea and complete that century-old mission. Under the sea, he stayed for 3 whole months. In 3 months, he finally found the legendary water dragon and got the water god halberd guarded by the water dragon. But at that time, he was almost in a desperate situation, and he was almost occupied by 10 tails. If it weren't for the unexpected help, I'm afraid he wouldn't be able to return to the mainland now. But in the end, 10 tails still failed. Instead, Naruto's spiritual power broke through the bottleneck and grew up again. Now the magic power in his body is more than when he first left the guild. I don't know how much, even himself dare not estimate. 10 tails, odds of winning are getting smaller and smaller. Now, 10 tails has huddled deep within his body, and no longer dares to blatantly compete with him. And now Naruto's strength has reached the 5 attributes that can be used freely, and they can be integrated with each other, and they are only one step away from killing 10 tails, absorbing everything from him, and achieving the ultimate power. However, this still needs an opportunity. 10 tails is the incarnation of the nature of heaven and earth. The spiritual power that has been nurtured for thousands of years is not something that Naruto can easily kill. Therefore, he can't be in a hurry now, he has to wait. The moment when 10 tails revealed a flaw. Walking on the street, the girls also turned their heads frequently, guessing his origin, or someone gave him a seductive look, and some mature women deliberately leaned over and wanted to touch him. With a faint smile on Naruto's face, he has grown into a tall and handsome boy in 6 years, and his strength is even more unpredictable. It's about making the most of your fighting power. So, he was tired of walking outside and planned to go back to the guild to see everyone. Over the years, he had only been to the guild once before he decided to go to the deep sea 3 years ago. Now after 3 years, I wonder what the guild will become. What will everyone be like? Naruto has some expectations in his heart. And this time, Naruto passed by the port city of Hirugen, and accidentally heard the legendary fire dragon appear here. He couldn't help but be a little curious about this, because he didn't perceive the dragon's powerful magic around here. Maybe it's just a rumor. Thinking like this, he suddenly saw a noise coming from the square in front of him. Wow, Lord Fire Dragon. Lord Fire Dragon, I want an autograph. Please sign me. A group of people gathered together, and there seemed to be a figure standing in the circle. Is this the guy called the Fire Dragon? Naruto walked over, and when he had nothing to do, he walked into the crowd and happened to see a handsome man showing off his fire magic. I saw the circle of flames revolving around him constantly, still jumping and moving in his hands. This is just one of the most basic skills of fire magicians. Naruto looked at him and shook his head with a smile. This was just showing off. It was extremely boring, and he could only deceive the people in this underdeveloped port capital area. Seeing everyone screaming and still waiting for autographs, Naruto turned around and wanted to leave. At this moment, he suddenly noticed that the magician named Fire Dragon exuded an abnormal magic power. Is this using magic? Naruto glanced back at him, and suddenly felt a wave of magic power being transmitted to him. Frowning slightly, he instantly locked his aura on his body and released an extremely powerful magical pressure on him. The handsome man was receiving the screams of many women's admiration, and was suddenly enveloped by this momentum. He only felt that the air suddenly sank, and his feet immediately fell to his knees. Boom! With a soft sound, he fell directly to the ground on his knees, and the whole person was stunned. Charm, magic that had been banned. Using magic to attract women is something Naruto disdains. Therefore, just after the fire dragon knelt down, all the girls recovered and all looked at him in surprise. After releasing the momentum, Naruto left the crowd. The fire dragon's eyes followed Naruto's back. His face was full of fear. Naruto's power has been cultivated to a state of ecstasy. His aura is only released on the fire dragon, and the people around him are not aware of it at all, but the fire dragon feels this heavy and frightening pressure, which is emanating from Naruto. So looking at his back at this time, it is like a devil. After Naruto left, he stood up again, hit a few ha-has to cover up. I was injured a little while removing the demon, and the old injury has just recurred. Everyone is really sorry. His words successfully won the attention of everyone, and they were exchanged for a lot of cheers. Okay, everyone, I will hold a banquet on the boat tonight. I hope everyone will come. Well, Lord Fire Dragon. We will definitely come. Hearing everyone's words, the fire dragon had a satisfied smile on his face, flames erupted from his feet, and his body vacated and took off. Naruto shook his head and thought to himself, what kind of people really exist? However, he has a little interest in that banquet, so let's have a free meal in the evening. At this time, a blonde girl stepped out of the crowd and cursed in disdain. What fire dragon? It's really bad to use charm, magic on others. If it wasn't for that guy's old injury just now, I'm afraid I would really be attracted to him. The blonde girl thought. 665, Satyr. After leaving, Naruto found a place to have a meal, and after eating, he just wandered around the town. This town seems to have a very developed fishing industry, where magic is relatively backward, and people don't know much about magic, most of which are only obtained from some books about magic. Naruto also bought a weekly magazine about magic in the bookstore. I glanced at the cover, and it was actually a white-haired girl. That face looked very familiar, but it was Mirage. The original ponytail is gone, now she has shalong hair, and the bangs on her forehead are tied into a small braid, revealing her bright white and tender forehead. Under a swimsuit, her body is sexy and hot, and the expression on her face doesn't seem to be what it used to be. Arrogant and domineering, but looks very soft. Why hasn't seen for 3 years, Mirage has changed so much. Naruto was stunned for a moment. After he returned to the guild 3 years ago, everyone has changed a lot, but it has not been this big. I have hardly paid attention to the guild in the past 3 years, it seems that a lot has really happened. Even a girl like Mirage can calm down and take a photo shoot. Naruto touched his face, and he couldn't help remembering the way she kissed him when he left, with a warm smile on his face. Mirage is now even more sexy and charming. Pervert. Just then, a female voice came from the side. Naruto came back to his senses and turned his head to look. Only then did he see a blonde girl parked beside him. The girl also held a weekly magazine just like his own. And she was looking at her face full of contempt, and muttered, "I didn't expect to look so handsome but be a lecher." Naruto heard clearly this time, and after being stunned, he couldn't help calling her, "You call me a pervert?" After just muttering, "Oh." Naruto was speechless. Boring. He didn't bother to explain, he just missed it for a while, and the girl made random guesses about herself, which he didn't bother to pay attention to. The blonde girl couldn't help being stunned. Seeing Naruto's back, she couldn't help biting Kiba and turned away with a cold snort. Damn, it's obviously a satyr. He turned a blind eye to Miss Ben. He actually said I was boring. Damn, is Miss Ben so charming? She looked at the girl on the cover in her hand, Mirage, who was also herself worshipping the target of envy. Compared with her, she really lacked something. However, it is impossible for that guy to turn a blind eye to himself. Compared to a photo, isn't the real self at all attractive? To say such a sinful thing. Am I bored? The blonde girl thought bitterly. She came to a public seat angrily and walked down, suddenly realizing that there was a figure beside her. It's Naruto. At this time, Naruto was fascinated by the Magic Weekly. The blonde girl was startled immediately, it was such a coincidence. Is this guy sitting here too? She doesn't want to sit with a pervert. It's just that this guy actually ignored him just now, this time he must show him his charm. The girl thought so, with a mischievous smile on her face, she deliberately came to Naruto, leaned down slightly, and said hello, "Hi. Mr. Satyr, you look so serious, can I ask you one question? How to get to the port?" Naruto had already noticed this girl's arrival, but he just ignored it. At this time, seeing her talking to him first, he was stunned for a moment, raised his head and said, "Port, I don't know, you still." Quote. However, halfway through his words, he was stunned, because under the girl's slightly open collar, because she was leaning down, the two plump mountains of flesh hung down on her chest, not only supporting her clothes, and revealed a deep ravine. At this time, the blonde girl blinked at him on purpose, and Naruto was immediately taken aback by her cuteness. Isn't this girl taking the wrong medicine? Is this tempting yourself? Mind-blowing thought. At this time, the girl saw Naruto's expression, and the corners of her mouth showed a proud arc. Sure enough, she was still attractive. This big pervert showed such a lustful expression, staring at himself, really embarrassed. However, she still had a beautiful sense of accomplishment in her heart. Feeling that she couldn't go on, she straightened up, retracted the deep ditch, and smiled contemptuously, "So Mr. Satyr is a newcomer too." At this time, Naruto had come back to his senses. Although he didn't understand what the girl was trying to do, he was still very unhappy when he heard her screaming like a pervert. He returned to a calm smile on his face, and said lightly, "I have a name, not a pervert." Girl was stunned when she heard the words, and then she couldn't help but cover her mouth and chuckle, "Oh, I'm so sorry. But you look too much like a pervert, your expression just now was nasty." She didn't look back after she said that left here. Looking at her back, Naruto couldn't help frowning. Did you provoke her somewhere? Would you like to teach me a lesson? It is clear that he seduced others first, and he also called them a pervert. What a rhetorical thing, mind-blowing thought. Shaking his head, he no longer bothered about such trivial matters. He continued to read Magic Weekly for a while, and saw a lot of news about Fairy Tales Guild. The guild has now become the strongest in the country. In particular, Urza, also known as the Fairy Queen, has become a signature character in the guild, and the fire dragons Natsu and Grey are also very famous. The change is really big. However, It seems that his name has never been mentioned. It seems that he has not been active in the guild for a long time, and even the outside world no longer pays attention. This time back to the guild, it is estimated that the completion of the Centennial mission will soon spread, right? Mind-blowing thought. 666. Get on the boat and play. That night, Naruto searched along the seaside for a while, and finally found a ship parked in the port, where the banquet set by the fire dragon was being held. Naruto was already hungry, so he got on the boat and was going to eat something to see what tricks the guy would turn out. However, just after arriving on the boat, two big men stopped him and said coldly, "Men are not welcome here." Naruto was stunned for a moment, then remembered that the fire dragon invited all women. This made Naruto feel that there was something wrong with the banquet. He thought about it for a while, then turned and left. After a while, a beautiful blonde girl walked into the boat and passed easily. However, the two big men who guarded the door looked at each other with some doubts, not knowing what they meant. The blonde girl is exactly what Naruto used the transformation technique to turn into the girl he saw in the morning. Change into her appearance. It is easy to infiltrate the ship. Naruto didn't want to cause trouble, although no one could stop him wherever he wanted to go with his power. After entering, the space in the cabin is very spacious, and there are many young girls and mature women singing, dancing and drinking. Naruto came to the side and sat down. Seeing the fruits and dishes on the table beside him, he ate it as if no one else was there. At this moment, several big men suddenly walked towards him. "Miss Lucy, why are you here? Aren't you drinking with Lord Fire Dragon?" they asked suspiciously. Naruto was stunned for a moment, thinking to himself, the name of this blonde girl is Lucy, and the name is quite nice, but she actually came here, is she deceived? "Oh, it's convenient to come out just now, I'll go back now." Naruto nodded and asked, "I am sorry, I drank too much, and I forgot Lord Fire Dragon's room." "Where is the room?" The two looked at each other and pointed to a hatch in front of them. "That's it." Naruto nodded and walked in with a glass of yuhi wine. There seemed to be two people guarding the door. When they saw Naruto, they were stunned for a moment, then touched their heads strangely and opened the door for him. Naruto took advantage of Lucy's identity to enter the door very smoothly. When the door was closed, he saw the scene in the room and couldn't help but be startled. "I saw a dozen or so burly men standing in the room, several sofas, and a handsome man sitting on the sofa. It was the fire dragon. And the most important thing is that on the sofa opposite the fire dragon, a young girl was trapped tightly on her hands and feet, struggling on the sofa, whimpering in her mouth and tears in her eyes." At this moment, those burly men seemed to want to reach out to touch her, but just as they reached out, they were disturbed by Naruto's arrival. "Yo, why is it so lively? What are you playing?" Naruto, who reacted, couldn't help but smile. "You, why are you here? Who are you?" However, everyone in the room opened their mouths wide and looked stunned. Huolong asked him in surprise. "There are actually two Lucys. Which one of these is the real one?" Lucy, who was lying on the sofa and tied to death, was also full of surprise. Naruto couldn't help laughing. He turned into Lucy and came to the boat. He didn't expect the real Lucy to come. No wonder those guys looked at him in the wrong way. "Who the hell are you?" one of the bald men yelled angrily. Naruto stopped laughing, pointed at the blonde girl named Lucy who was tied to the sofa, and said lightly, "Can you tell me first, what tricks are you playing? SM, or Group P Wars?" Everyone was stunned. Lucy's whimper grew louder. Naruto laughed and said, "I didn't expect you to have such a strong taste, Lucy." Lucy looked at Naruto's eyes, breathing fire and asking for help, which was complicated. At this time, Huolong and others finally realized that this Lucy who just came in is a fake. Immediately, two people rushed over and scolded, "Damn it! Change me back to the way it was." A stick was drawn towards Naruto, and the next moment, only a light thud was heard, and under a puff of white smoke, Naruto returned to his original appearance. The stick was squeezed in his hand, and with a gentle force, it clicked twice. Before seeing him make a move, the two rushing people in front of him suddenly bounced out. Whoa! The two vomited blood and slammed into a long table. A look of surprise flashed in Lucy's eyes. Ooh. Mr. Satyr, the white cloth was stuffed in her mouth. Naruto looked at her and smiled slightly. It's dangerous to play games. There are a group of perverts here. Lucy continued to whimper, her eyes mixed with anxiety and joy, with a hint of pleading. At this time, the fire dragon sitting on the sofa suddenly shouted in horror after seeing Naruto's figure. It's you. Oh, you know me? Naruto asked, tilting his head. Ah no, I don't know you, but. Huolong's face was pale with fright, and he stammered in his mouth and couldn't say a word to Ben. He looked at Naruto with fear in his eyes. Isn't this guy the one who knocked himself down with his aura before? How did he get here? This is bad. To die. The next moment, he suddenly rolled and crawled back and rushed out. Stop, Naruto said lightly. The fire dragon immediately stopped in place, turned around mechanically, with a look of horror on his face, and begged, big, Lord. Forgive your life. Many of the surrounding Huolong's subordinates couldn't help being stunned when they saw this scene. I didn't expect that Huolong-sama would not even fight this young man. Lucy was also puzzled, but she was finally saved from the hands of these bastards. Although Naruto is also a satyr in her impression, it is better than this group of criminals, right? At this time, Naruto said unhurriedly, I am very curious, what are you trying to do with Lucy? The fire dragon knelt on the ground, his head was deeply on the floor, and he answered tremblingly, we want to capture her as a slave and sell it for money. So, you are slave traders. Naruto rubbed his chin and laughed. Yes. Huolong shuddered. And his subordinates stood there, not knowing whether to rush up or not. A slave trader. I've seen a lot. Do you know how I deal with it? Naruto continued to laugh. The fire dragon trembled, not daring to answer. At this time, several subordinates who knew that they could not escape suddenly rushed towards Naruto with a loud roar. The fire dragon raised his head, was startled immediately, and quickly lowered his head to dare not look again. Naruto stretched out his hand and pushed it gently. Before those people came to Naruto's side, they flew out quickly, with two loud bangs, and two large holes were broken in the top of the entire cabin, and several people disappeared. In the starry sky. Seeing that Naruto is so powerful, everyone dared not move, and Lucy was also greatly surprised. I didn't expect Naruto's strength to be so strong. Before, she had always thought that this guy was just a handsome pervert, but he didn't expect to be a powerful wizard. This surprised her and was a little nervous at the same time. She seemed to have been scolding him for being a pervert before, but now she has offended him badly. If he is so lustful, will he treat himself for a while? No, I don't want to just get out of the wolf pack and enter the tiger's mouth again. Lucy cried out in her heart. 667. Saved. Naruto didn't know what Lucy was thinking. In fact, he was not as happy as he seemed to be smiling. On the contrary, he was very angry. Because of the slave traders, Urza and the others once spent such a tragic life in the Tower of Paradise, which had a serious impact on people's body and mind. If there is a chance, Naruto really wants to kill all the slave traders, but he also knows that behind the light of the world, there must be darkness, which is something that can never be changed. However, although he doesn't want to save world peace or the like, he will still intervene when something that makes him disliked appears in front of him. Like this time. He will show no mercy to slave criminal gangs. At this time, Huolong and his subordinates all stayed where they were, not daring to move, waiting for his hair to fall. Naruto thought for a while and said, I'm going back to the guild tomorrow. I don't want to be stained with blood before I go back. You should be lucky. Huolong and the others couldn't help but feel a little joy. But soon, their mood fell to the bottom again. Because Naruto's words almost broke them. Every one of you tie yourselves up and jump into the sea again. Quote. Fight! Suddenly, the fire dragon and the few subordinates suddenly burst into flames, and rushed towards Naruto with a loud roar. Seeing this, Naruto pouted and muttered to himself, "No way, then I'll break your hands and feet and throw them into the sea." As soon as the voice fell, everyone only felt a phantom in front of them swaying again and again. They didn't even have time to use magic, and they found that there was a sharp pain all over their bodies. After a few seconds, they all fell to the ground. Then, Naruto kicked them all and threw them all into the sea. After clapping his hands, Naruto exhaled. "It's really troublesome, the good mood has been ruined." He took a cup of yuhi wine next to him, took a sip, and walked towards Lucy. Lucy was startled, looked at Naruto in horror, and let out a whimper. "This guy is so scary. He actually broke the hands and feet of those people and threw them into the sea. Isn't this all feeding the fish? I didn't expect him to be so cruel. Although these enemies are very hateful, even dragging them out to feed the fish is not an exaggeration, but he has also offended him. What would he do to himself? What? He was kinky to himself." Laughed. Looking at the smile on Naruto's face, Lucy thought to herself, her body couldn't help shaking, tears welling up in her eyes. "Coming. This guy is here. What? He also reached out. To your own face. What is he going to do? Want to touch yourself? How to do? I'm about to be fucked by this guy, Gong Rui. Although this guy is very handsome, but he is still a virgin. How can this be so? Cannot be done. If so, I would rather die." At this moment, she even thought of biting her tongue and committing suicide, but unfortunately the white cloth was stuffed in her mouth, and even this became an extravagant hope. At this time, Naruto's hand had come to Lucy's face, and the next moment, he grabbed the white cloth in Lucy's mouth and pulled it out. Lucy was stunned for a moment, but she stayed there with her mouth open for a while. He didn't touch it. Why didn't you speak? After Naruto took out the cloth strip, he couldn't help but wondered, why don't you even have any feelings after being saved? Strange. Isn't it because you were scared, stupid? He reached out and touched Lucy's head. Lucy snapped back to her senses, hurried back to avoid it, and screamed, "Ah! Don't come over! Don't come over!" Naruto couldn't help but be speechless. "What are you doing? Don't you want to untie the rope?" Lucy stayed for a while, and then realized that this guy really wanted to save himself. It turned out that he thought too much about all this. She couldn't help but face Yuhi with embarrassment. Lucy turned around and pointed her buttocks at Naruto, revealing her hands tied behind her back. Naruto stepped forward to help untie her, inadvertently glanced at her high buttocks. Her heart skipped a beat. The girl's figure is really good. Better than the cover girl Mirage. After undoing her hands, he untied the rope trapped in her thigh for her. Lucy's whole body was finally freed. She couldn't help cheering and jumped up. Finally saved. Great. It's really bad. As a magician, he was actually restrained by others. Don't you have any precautions? Naruto said aloud. He felt a magic power fluctuation from Lucy, which was much stronger than those of the fire dragon's subordinates. I didn't expect to be arrested. This girl is really a novice. Lucy, who was taught a lesson by Naruto, had a slight face. Yuhi. I heard him say that he can let me enter fairy tale, so I was a little careless. Fairy tale. Naruto was taken aback. Yeah, the guild I really want to join. If I hadn't heard the fire dragon say there is a way to join, how could I have been arrested? Lucy sighed, but I didn't expect this guy to be such a scumbag. Lie to me with the name of the fairy tale guild. Is he really the wizard of fairy tale? Hearing this, Naruto couldn't help laughing. I don't know if there is such a guy in the fairy tale guild. Maybe he lied to you all this, but even if there is, I will never make him feel better. Quote. Well, that's really good. Oh right, Mr. Satyr, I still don't know your name. What's your name? Lucy asked with big eyes. Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto said indifferently. I am also the wizard of fairy tale. What? You are the wizard of fairy tale? Lucy was shocked when she heard that, and suddenly she wondered. But, Someone as powerful as you should be famous. How come I never heard of you? Maybe it's because I'm relatively low-key. Naruto laughed. Really? However, I feel a little familiar, as if I've heard it somewhere. Lucy tilted her head and stared at Naruto, and said with a puzzled look on her face. 668. Ice Sculpture. Okay, let's get off the boat first. The movement here should have attracted the conquering army. Those guys should have sunk to the bottom of the sea. I have to go quickly. Naruto grabbed her and walked outside without a word. Go. Why are you pulling me? Don't tear me apart. I'm a good person, Lucy yelled, and Naruto pulled her out of the cabin involuntarily. Didn't you say you want to join Fairy Tail? I'm just going back this time. Let's take you for an interview. Our president is a good person. Your conditions should be able to enter. Naruto laughed. Really? Ah, that's great. When Lucy heard that Naruto was able to bring her into Fairy Tail, she jumped up and cheered, and followed Naruto out of the boat. After the two got off the boat, the army that came to hear the news quickly surrounded the boat, arrested some remnants inside, and sent people to the sea to salvage. And the culprit, Naruto, was in a restaurant at this time, eating with Lucy. Although he had eaten on the boat before, he was still not full, and Lucy also said that she was a little hungry, so she stopped by to eat something. The two sat opposite each other, and Lucy's beautiful big eyes stared at him unblinkingly. After taking a few bites, Naruto touched his face and asked strangely, "Is there something on my face?" Lucy's jade face slightly swayed. I'm thinking, who the hell are you? You're not a liar like Fire Dragon again, are you? Naruto lifted his sleeves, revealing the guild crest on his arm. You can see if this is the seal of Fairy Tail. Really? You really are the wizard of the Fairy Tail Guild? After seeing Lucy, she cheered with confidence. If I have intentions against you, do I still need to lie? Naruto murmured, with his strength, what kind of woman can't be forcibly obtained? Of course, he didn't want to do that. Although Lucy was very beautiful, a typical blonde beauty, but what did this have to do with him? There are so many beautiful women in the world, do you have to go to work when you see one? He is not a beast who thinks with his lower body. However, a beauty like Lucy is really exciting. Lucy seemed very excited. Hey, Naruto. What kind of guild is Fairy Tail? I heard that the people in it are very good. And they are very good at destruction. Well, that's true, there are quite a few powerful guys. As for sabotage, I don't know, but recently I've heard that many people in the guild are causing trouble outside. Naruto frowned. For example, Natsu ruined a landmark building in a certain urban area. Although these are not a problem for him, but seeing the guys in the guild being so arrogant and ignorant of being low-key outside, he still felt a little inappropriate. The so-called shot is the first bird, but Naruto recently heard that the guys from the Magic Council are very unhappy with the guild. Naruto, aren't you a wizard in the guild? How come you don't know much about the guild? It seems like you don't have as much as me. Lucy had a suspicious look on her face. Naruto shook his head helplessly. Don't look at me like that, I just haven't gone back to the guild for 3 years. What? You haven't returned to the guild for 3 years? Lucy was slightly surprised. Why is that? Do the task, Naruto said lightly. Mission. What is it? Why does it take so long? Lucy leaned over with a look of 8 trigrams, staring at Naruto and asked curiously. Okay, I'll tell you this when the time comes. Let's eat now. You haven't joined the guild yet, so you don't understand what I'm telling you. Naruto waved his hand and continued to eat. Lucy couldn't help but pursed her lips and gave him a disappointed look. However, when she thought of having the opportunity to enter the guild she had dreamed of going to, Lucy's heart was filled with anticipation. That night, the two found a hotel and asked for 2 rooms to rest for the night. The next day, after a little preparation, they set off for Fairy Tail. Along the way, Lucy also introduced her magic to Naruto, which is a kind of celestial magic of the summoning system. This kind of magic is quite special, and Naruto even thought it was a kind of space magic. Summoning system, isn't it similar to psychic? Although he had been walking outside for a long time, he had heard of Protoss magic, but it was not until today that he really saw this kind of magic. It seems that Protoss magic is indeed very rare. Hey, Naruto, what kind of magic is yours? I saw you didn't use any magic that day, so I put those guys down. Are you practicing taijutsu? Lucy asked. Naruto smiled slightly. My magic is very complicated, but if I want to say, I usually use ice magic, this is it. He said, stretched out his hand and placed it in front of Lucy. A beautiful ice sculpture in the palm of his hand was instantly formed, which was the image of a miniature version of Lucy. Wow, it's so beautiful. When Lucy saw this, she immediately reached out to hold the ice sculpture, and it was cold and cold. She was very happy. Naruto, how about giving this to me? Ice will melt. Naruto shook his head and said, even if I give it to you, it will disappear soon. Ah, that's it. When Lucy heard the words, a disappointed look appeared on her face. Then is there any way you can make it never melt? She asked after thinking for a while, blinking again. Naruto pondered for a while, and said, it's fine if you want it to never melt, but it only takes a little more magic power from me. He waved his hand, and a wave of magic power covered the ice sculpture. After a while, the ice sculpture became more solid and bright. That's good, but you can only keep this thing at home, because it has the influence of my magic power in it, and it contains too much cold air. It is not good for your health if you wear it all the time. I know. Thank you, Naruto. Lucy's face showed a happy look. 669. Back to the guild. In the afternoon, the two took the train to the city where Fairy Tail is located, Magnolia. After passing through the Cathedral of Cartier, Naruto and the two walked along the wide street to the Fairy Tail Guild. At the gate of the guild, Naruto stopped and looked at the guild that had been away for 3 years. He was still a little emotional. He hadn't seen each other for 3 years. I wonder how everyone in the guild was doing. He remembered that when he came to the guild 3 years ago, everyone was still surprised. What's wrong, Naruto? Lucy couldn't help laughing. Isn't it a long time since I've come back and I'm not used to it? Naruto turned to look at her and walked in. Lucy followed behind him, looking at the huge seal pattern on the top of the guild building. Her face was full of excitement, and she finally arrived at Fairy Tail. This is the real guild. It's time to meet the characters in the guild. In the guild, it was unusually noisy, even more disturbing than before, but this is the guild. Naruto couldn't help laughing. When he walked into the hall, everyone didn't seem to notice him, until he wanted to say hello to everyone. There was a very surprised voice, it's Naruto. At this time, all the noisy guild members involuntarily quieted down, and all looked at Naruto's location. When they saw that it was really Naruto, everyone couldn't help but stunned. Natsu and Grace stopped fighting. Mikao and Okaba also opened their mouths. Kana's barrel rolled directly to the ground, and Mirage also stayed at the counter and forgot to speak to the guests. Everyone, I'm back. Naruto waved at everyone with a bright smile on his face. This kind of smile almost made people cry. What a familiar and warm smile. Naruto, you are finally back. With a bang, everyone burst into a burst of enthusiastic cheers, and almost everyone jumped up with laughter on their faces. Lucy couldn't help stunned. Why is this guy so popular? Is everyone's reaction so exaggerated? Even the president, everyone wouldn't cheer like that. At this time, with everyone's cheers, a group of girls rushed out of the crowd, and suddenly pushed Lucy aside, surrounding Naruto in the middle. Naruto, you're back. People want to kill you. Naruto, I miss you too. Have you missed anyone? Naruto, you're so tall. You've become even more handsome. Naruto. Naruto. All kinds of twittering female voices lingered in his ears. Naruto couldn't bear it. Everyone was so enthusiastic, he was embarrassed for doing it. He finally rushed out of the pile of girls, let out a long sigh, and then went to greet everyone one by one. Lucy completely became a passerby by the side, staring at him resentfully. Did this guy forget about himself? Natsu, Gray, you haven't played enough for so many years. Macau, you're getting old. Kana, your alcohol limit. Hey, it looks like there are a lot of new people in the guild who don't know each other. Naruto saw a few people beside him, hugging a handsome blonde guy with glasses who was more handsome than himself, and a long green hair wearing the girl in the cowboy hat. There seemed to be a boy with long black hair talking beside her, but it seemed that she didn't pay much attention to him, but Naruto felt that the girl was staring at him without blinking. And, Mirage, you look like this. Finally, Naruto walked up to the white-haired girl who was standing by the counter, took out a book and said, the change is great, but the cover shot is good. Quote. It was only at this moment that Mirage came to realize that she suddenly burst into tears and slammed into Naruto's arms. Naruto, I miss you so much. Woo woo whoa. Mirage was buried in Naruto's arms, a pair of jade hands clutching the clothes on Naruto's chest. Tears poured out like a floodgate, soaking Naruto's clothes all of a sudden. Naruto couldn't help being stunned. What happened to Mirage? He remembered that when he came back 3 years ago, she still pulled her collar and said she was going to beat him. Why was there such a big difference this time? Crying like a little grumpy woman. He stretched out his hand and patted her tender and fragrant shoulder lightly, and comforted softly, I'm already back, I'll be flooded if I cry again. Only then did Mirage stop crying, and raised his head, revealing Yuhi's big eyes that were swollen from crying, and looked at him pitifully, as if there were endless things in his eyes. Inexplicable pain in Naruto's heart. Why did Mirage become like this? Such a weak, distressing look. Is this still the arrogant and domineering Mirage? In the past 3 years, what happened to her to cause her character to become like this? What's wrong, Mirage? Naruto asked, looking down at her. Mirage's expression darkened slightly, and he sighed faintly. I'll tell you later, when you come back this time. Does it mean that the mission has been completed? Because the last time he came back, Naruto explained to everyone that he would not return to the guild until the 100-year mission was completed. Now, Naruto is back, which is enough to explain it all. Naruto nodded. The mission has been completed, but this time I also brought a new person. He pointed to Lucy, who was already stunned beside him. Lucy was too shocked to speak at this time. Who the hell is this guy Naruto? With such a high popularity in the guild, so many girls revolved around him, and even his idol Mirage gave his arms to him, which is simply unimaginable. But why haven't I heard of such a guy? At this time, seeing Naruto finally remembering herself, Lucy came back to her senses, glared at him secretly, and politely introduced herself to everyone. Hello everyone, my name is Lucy. I am a famous star spirit sorcerer. I want to join Fairy Tale 670. Secret. Is it Lucy? It's a really good name. At this time, someone noticed Lucy, and it was impossible for such a beautiful blonde girl to stand by. However, everyone ignored her a little because of Naruto's appearance. At this moment, when Naruto said that she was going to join the guild, they immediately surrounded her and greeted her. Lucy also greeted everyone one by one, looking very friendly. By the way, where's the president? A newcomer is here today, and I have to report to him about the mission. Naruto turned his head and asked Mirage. At this time, Mirage had stabilized his mood, with a gentle look. The president was still here just now, but it should appear soon. Oh, I've already felt his magic power fluctuate. Naruto looked towards the back of the guild hall. At this time, another figure suddenly walked in at the gate of the guild, making everyone stunned again. On the shoulders of the visitor was a huge thing that looked like a monster's horn. It looked very heavy. Under this behemoth, the figure of the visitor appeared very petite, and the whole body was covered in a huge shadow. When she walked into the hall, Naruto couldn't help but smile. Elsa. That's right, the person who came is Urza, who just returned from the mission. She is still wearing a suit of armor, but compared to when she was a child, she is now more mature and beautiful. Her temperament has also become sharper than ever, and she is full of Ten's eldest sister's demeanor. However, when she heard Naruto's voice, she couldn't help trembling all over, and the monster horn on her shoulder slammed onto the floor with a bang, shaking the entire guild. Then, her eyes instantly passed through the crowd and fell on Naruto's face. "Ming, people," Urza said in disbelief, her voice clearer and more pleasant than before. With a whimper, Urza suddenly rushed over and hugged Naruto's body, holding him tightly in her arms. "Great, you're finally back." "Ah, yes, I'm coming back, but it's so tough." Naruto was hugged tightly by her, but the cold and hard armor on her body was really uncompromising. Urza closed her eyes and held Naruto with a face full of intoxication. The longing in her heart was finally released at this moment. It has been 3 years. 3 years. In these 3 years, she has not missed him a day. Especially when he said that he was going to complete the 100-year mission, her heart was always on her mind, for fear that he would not come back. At this moment, being able to reunite with Naruto, Urza could no longer control her feelings, and crystal tears flowed silently from the corners of her eyes. The two hugged for a long time before finally letting go. Urza looked up at him, her expression full of joy. "Naruto, you've grown taller. You've grown stronger." Naruto sweated. "So are you." "Then what do you think I've become?" Elsa suddenly asked him nervously. Naruto touched his chin, looked at her up and down, and saw her face slightly yuhi. They become mature and sexy. And it's even more beautiful." "Really?" Urza suddenly showed surprise, grabbing Naruto's arm and shouting. "Really? If you don't believe me, ask everyone." Naruto smiled slightly. Everyone couldn't help laughing. Urza, who usually looks like a cold big sister, would only show such a mood in front of Naruto. Men are very envious. It can make the fairy queen Urza so favored. It's just a very happy thing. At this moment, the president's voice suddenly sounded from above everyone's heads. "You guys, what are you making of the noise?" I saw a huge black shadow shrouded everyone's heads, and the frightened Lucy hugged Naruto's arm all of a sudden. "Yo, it's the president. You finally appeared." Naruto waved his hand to greet him. The shadow quickly shrank and turned back to its original shape. It was a short little old man with a gray beard and a charitable rather than a majestic face. He looked up at Naruto and said with a smile, "Naruto, you are finally back. Is this the newcomer?" Lucy was struck by lightning, and quickly nodded. My name is Lucy." "Hello, President. Well, I heard that you want to join the guild." "Yeah, please let me join, I really like it here," Lucy begged nervously. Naruto also said, "She is a celestial wizard, I met on the way back." "Haha, since it was brought by Naruto, then of course you are welcome to join in." The president laughed, then jumped to the counter and shouted, "Everyone, let's celebrate. Ming today, people are returning, and new people are joining, so we must have a carnival." Quote. "Yeah, good." Everyone cheered excitedly. Naruto and Lucy looked at each other and smiled slightly. Next, everyone sang and danced. The hall was extremely lively. Naruto sat there drinking tea, and people kept coming to talk to him. Of course, most of them were girls. At this time, Kana finally had the opportunity to come to Naruto with the barrel of wine and said, "Naruto, we haven't had a drink in a long time. Come with me for a drink." "Okay, no problem." Naruto smiled and nodded. After replacing the tea in his hand with a wine bottle, he and Kana drank. It's just that Naruto just took a sip when he saw her holding the wine barrel that was thicker than a human waist and taking several sips. The gurgling sound of swallowing made people surprised. "Kana, I haven't seen you for 3 years, and your alcohol intake has increased again." Naruto shook his head helplessly. He remembered that Kana really drank from a bottle 3 years ago, but now she doesn't even want the bottle, and just put it on the barrel. What is her belly made of? It's unbelievable. At this time, Kana heard the words but sighed faintly and said, "It's not because of you. Since you left, I don't want to do anything except drink every day." Quote. Naruto couldn't help but smile bitterly. Isn't that exaggerated? Suddenly, Kana opened her soft lips full of alcohol, leaned close to Naruto's ear, and said with a slightly yuhi face, Naruto, let me tell you a secret. 671. I'm still a virgin. There was a faint fragrance in the wine, and there was a warm gas blowing towards the face. Naruto turned to look at her. Kana's face was covered with Yuhi's dizziness, and a pair of soft eyes seemed to be giggling. His heart skipped a beat. What's the secret? Kana put down the wine barrel, looked not far away, and found that Urza was chatting hotly with the newcomer Lucy, so she approached Naruto again, pressed her body against his arm, and whispered, This secret, I've always kept it for you. I didn't tell you until now. Well, tell me. Naruto felt the soft bulge on Kana's chest, which seemed to be rubbing the back of his hand. Looking down, he saw a deep ravine, the slightly curled wavy shape. With his long hair on his body, he felt a little embarrassed. By the way, Kana has also grown up, and her figure has become very good. Kana giggled, almost whispering into Naruto's ears, I'm still a virgin. Naruto was stunned for a moment, looking at her in disbelief. Are you surprised? I can tell you that many girls in the guild are not virgins anymore. Kana blinked. Do you understand what I mean? Naruto. Oh, why are you so slow? Kana couldn't help but get anxious when he saw that he didn't speak. She grabbed Naruto's hand and shouted, I've always reserved it for you. Naruto couldn't help but stay for a while. The strength of the confession of this sentence is absolutely outstanding. Kana actually said so directly that she should keep the virgin herself. Is this the temptation to eat guago? How can this be rejected? Naruto couldn't help being a little stunned. Looking at Kana's beautiful figure and youthful and beautiful face, he was indeed moved. However, just when he was about to say something, Urza over there suddenly came over, glared at Kana and said, Kana, although it's party time now, you can't drink like this. Look at you, drinking like this, it's really outrageous to have a face full of alcohol. Kana opened her mouth, but under the pressure of Urza, she stopped talking and had to walk away pitifully. Damn Urza, you are about to succeed. Naruto sighed, thinking that if Urza doesn't come again, he really wants to open a room with Kana. For some reason, he was also a little disappointed. Urza came to him and said, Naruto, the president asked you to come over. Naruto smiled slightly, nodded, stood up, and walked towards the back of the hall. After coming to the hall, President Kamarov was standing in the courtyard with a smile on his face. Naruto, I really didn't expect you to complete this century-old mission. He said. Naruto nodded. Yeah, I'm a little fortunate myself. The 100-year mission is really not that easy to do. I stayed in the deep sea for more than 3 months, and the final mission almost failed. The two talked about the mission. Makarov, as one of the top 10 magic wizards of the Holy Spirit, is also very powerful, but he also feels powerless about the 100-year mission. In the conversation with Naruto, he told Naruto, I am very proud to be able to complete the mission for 100 years. After all, the mission that no one has been able to complete in 100 years has been completed by Naruto, a young man who is only 17 or 18 years old. This will definitely go down in the history of magic. Moreover, Fairy Tail has produced such a powerful wizard, which is also a very commendable thing in the magic world. During the conversation with Makarov, Naruto also revealed some details of this mission. The battle with the water dragon in the deep sea allowed him to know the strength of the dragon, which is definitely beyond this world. After the existence of the 10 great magic guides, after telling Makarov the news, Makarov also deeply agreed. Although the dragon is a legendary existence in the eyes of ordinary people and even most wizards, people like Makarov are convinced of the existence of dragons, and they also have some understanding of the power of dragons. And this time through Naruto's mission, he also learned about the specific strength of the dragon, which is the power standing at the top of this world, and mortals can't touch it at all, but because of this, he pays more attention to Naruto. The strength of those who can fight and win with dragons has reached the point where even Makarov is deeply amazed. After returning to the hall from the backyard, Lucy jumped over excitedly, took Naruto's arm and said happily, "Naruto, this guild is really good. Everyone is very kind to me. Thank you for bringing me here. Such a great guild." Naruto smiled slightly. Lucy said in frustration again, "But everyone's strength is so strong. I guess it's the weakest." "Your strength is not bad, take your time, you will definitely become stronger and stronger." Hee, thank you Naruto. The carnival ended quickly, and until late at night, people with strength and energy returned home one after another, while others who had already fallen asleep continued to lie in the hall. Naruto glanced at the messy hall, yawned and prepared to go back. In other words, after he returned to the guild today, he never returned to the house he rented. That being said, the house seems to have expired long ago. Oops, there's nowhere to go now. At this time, Lucy, who had nowhere to go, said to Naruto, "Are we sleeping in the guild like them?" Naruto shook his head. "Neither do I." Lucy nodded in agreement. "But my house hasn't been settled yet. I'm going to sleep in a hotel again tonight." "Me too," Naruto sighed. Suddenly, Elsa, who was about to go back, stopped Naruto and said, "What are you talking about? Don't you have a house to live in? What are you doing if you don't go home?" My house should have expired long ago. I haven't paid the room fee for a long time." Naruto was taken aback. Elsa smiled. "Don't worry, your house is still there. And you don't need to clean it. I've been paying you rent all these years. I also hired someone to clean your room. What's the point of this, anyway? You can rent another set now," Naruto said, and his heart couldn't help but feel a little moved. Although it was only a rented house, Urza still took care of it so carefully. What a gentle woman. Elsa smiled slightly, "Because I know you will definitely come back. This place will always be your home." Naruto smiled. At this moment, Lucy couldn't help asking, "But what should I do?" "You're staying in a hotel tonight." Urza smiled at her. "Oh, that's fine," Lucy responded, turned to leave, and muttered, "I thought you would take me in." Watching Lucy leave, Naruto wanted to send her off so late, but he couldn't do anything after being held by Elsa. He just set a perception magic on her. "Naruto, just drop by and take me home," she said. Naruto nodded and walked back with Urza. In the middle of the night sky is dotted with stars, and under the starry sky, Naruto and the two of them are walking on the street bathed in moonlight. He and Urza haven't seen each other for a long time. After 3 years, the relationship between the two has not become estranged. Instead, they have brought another mood when they grow up. It is very warm and romantic, which makes Naruto feel like a couple walking. "Naruto, did you know? In the past 3 years, a lot has happened." Suddenly, Urza said softly. 672. Sadness. "Yeah, there are many more people in the guild. Mirage has actually become like that. Oh, by the way, how could her personality change so much?" Naruto also asked with emotion. When Urza heard the words, her body paused slightly, and she lowered her head and sighed. "Naruto, not long after you left last time, a big thing happened in Mirage." Naruto was slightly startled. "What's the matter?" Glanced at him and whispered, "Lisana is dead." "What?" Naruto was shocked. "What's going on? How did Lisana die?" He was shocked. The short-haired little girl who often followed Mirage's ass. Naruto knew that she was Mirage's and Elfman's brother. The three of them came to the union together at the beginning, and you will see Lisana coming to persuade her sister who was fighting with Urza. At a young age, she was more mature and gentle than her sister, and she was a very good girl. How could she die? Next, Urza will go on a mission with the Mirage sister and brother, and she tells Naruto about Lisana's unfortunate death during the mission. After Naruto heard it, he was speechless for a long time. He looked up at the starry sky and sighed. "I didn't expect this kind of thing to happen after I left. If I was there at the time, this thing would never have happened." Urza suddenly took his hand, looked at him gently and shook his head. No, Naruto, this has nothing to do with you. You don't need to blame yourself. As a wizard of the guild, you are always there. Prepare to sacrifice when going on a mission. Although everyone is sad about Lisana's death, we are all working hard to become stronger. Only by constantly becoming stronger can we live well. Naruto, I kind of understand why it's going to get stronger. Naruto sighed slightly, and the atmosphere was a little sad for a while. When Urza was sent back to the women's dormitory, Mirage was waiting for them at the door of the dormitory. Mirage, Urza called her in surprise. Mirage said slowly, I knew you would come back together, I'm here waiting for Naruto. When Urza heard the words, she opened her mouth and wanted to say something, but in the end she didn't say anything and walked into the women's dormitory silently. Mirage walked over to Naruto and looked up at him. Can you walk with me? Naruto looked down at her watery eyes and nodded slightly. The two left the women's dormitory together. In the building of the women's dormitory, Elsa was looking at their backs under the moonlight and sighed slightly. Along the way with Mirage to the other side of the city, the two of them were speechless along the way. Walking quietly for a long time, Naruto finally said, I'm sorry, Mirage. Why apologize? Mirage turned to look at him. Because of Lisana's business. Naruto blamed himself. If I had been there at the time, such a thing would not have happened. Mirage stopped, gently stretched out a sallow jade finger, and pressed it against Naruto's lips. She slowly shook her head, her eyes seemed to be filled with water and mist. No, Naruto, how can you blame this matter? What about you? And this matter has now passed. What we have to do is to live well and live together for Lisana's share. For this, I have also promised her what she must do. Things. Seeing the sadness and longing in her eyes, Naruto felt very uncomfortable. Because of his sister's death, Mirage's personality changed into this, and he no longer had the domineering and mighty look he used to be. After a while, the two finally came to the back of a church, which was Lisana's cemetery. This is Lisana's resting place. Mirage took Naruto to a tombstone with Lisana's name engraved on it. He stepped forward, deeply mourning. Looking at the tombstone, Mirage's eyes finally couldn't help shedding tears, and he burst into tears. The night was very dark, and the stars in the sky seemed to escape behind the clouds and mist. In the darkness, Mirage leaned on Naruto's shoulder and said faintly, Naruto, do you know? Lisana, she has always been. I admire you very much and work hard with you as the goal. When you came back that year, she told me that she would come to you in the most beautiful dress, but you left the guild before she finished choosing the clothes. Quote. Naruto trembled slightly, and there was something heavy in his heart. However, he has another idea. If his power can reach the final form, he may be able to resurrect the dead. Even if Lisana is dead, he can still bring her back to life. Thinking of this, his inner belief became stronger. Even if it is not for himself, for Mirage and Lisana, he must obtain the strongest power and become the existence that controls everything. Mirage, let's go back. Naruto patted her tender shoulders. Mirage nodded lightly, and left the church cemetery with Naruto's arm in his arms. In fact, there is one thing she didn't say, that is what Lisana said before her death. She said that she hoped to see her sister and Naruto when they were together. When Naruto sent her back to the women's dormitory, he found that it was too late. The doors of the dormitory were all closed, and Mirage couldn't enter the dormitory, but she didn't want to break the rules and climbed in. Naruto smiled bitterly. It's already 3 o'clock in the morning, why don't you go to my house for a rest first, and you have to go to the guild bar to serve you tomorrow. Mirage hesitated for a moment, finally nodded, and came to Naruto's house nervously. It was the first time in 3 years that Naruto came back to the place where he lived. After entering the house, he found that it was still the same as it was, and it was cleanly cleaned, and even the things in the room had not been touched. Fortunately, the house was quite big, not just one room. After Naruto arranged a room for Mirage, he also went back to the room to sleep. However, lying on the bed, he tossed and turned and couldn't fall asleep. He would always think of Listener and sigh deeply when he thought about it. Mirage must have been very miserable these 3 years, right? Losing her lovely sister, she must have needed someone's comfort at that time, but she was not by her side. 673. Random Thoughts. Mirage, who was also in another room, couldn't sleep either. He tossed and turned on the bed, looking out the window. It was almost dawn. When the sun rose in the morning, Naruto, who directly replaced the practice with meditation, opened his eyes and knocked on Mirage's door, but Mirage fell into a deep sleep and did not wake up. After thinking about it for a while, he stopped bothering her. After he went outside to prepare a breakfast for her and put it on the table, he went to the guild. As soon as Naruto arrived at the guild, Urza, who arrived early, came to him with dark circles on her face. It seemed that she hadn't slept well last night. She frowned and asked, "Naruto, where's Mirage? She didn't come back to sleep last night." Naruto was stunned for a moment, and then replied, "It was really too late yesterday. The door to the dormitory was all closed, so I let her stay at my place for one night." What? As soon as Urza heard this, she almost jumped up in shock, grabbed Naruto's arm and said nervously, "You mean, you stayed at Mirage last night?" "Well, yes." Naruto nodded. Elsa suddenly became like an eggplant hit by frost, and she kept roaring in her heart, damn it, she didn't have such treatment. How could Mirage fall asleep at Naruto's house so easily? Damn, it seems that Naruto's house is still in charge of cleaning. What about her now? Why didn't she come to the guild with you? Elsa asked again. Oh, she was too tired last night, so I didn't wake her up and wanted her to rest. Naruto smiled lightly. Let someone else take the place of the bar service today. At this moment, a girl jumped out and shouted, "Let me come, let me come." Urza had stayed where she was, and Naruto's words just kept popping up in her mind. She was too tired last night, she was too tired last night, she was too tired last night. Too tired. What the hell happened to them last night? Ah. Urza stared at Naruto, her eyes almost tearing him apart. What's wrong with you, Urza? Naruto couldn't help asking, noticing her strangeness. No, it's nothing. Urza was startled. She quickly regained her senses, and Yuhi covered her face. At this moment, Lucy's voice came from behind Naruto. Really, Naruto, you made me sleep in a hotel alone yesterday, so you still have a room in your house. You are so hateful. The blonde girl jumped out and grabbed Naruto's arm and said in a coquettish manner. Naruto turned around and greeted with a smile. Good morning, Lucy, I think the hotel should be more comfortable than my home. What? I mean, if you let me live at your house, I won't have to pay for the room. Poor me, I have no money now. It's not good if I stay in a hotel all the time. I have a task to do. I want make money, Lucy cried weakly. Well, why don't I lend you some money first, so you can rent a house? Naruto suggested. You, lend me money, really? Lucy asked in disbelief. Yeah, why do you look at me like this for such a trivial matter as borrowing money? Naruto was speechless. Lucy looked at him suspiciously, and then at Urza, with a puzzled look on her face. But, your own rent is still paid by Urza. Urza pulled her hard. Naruto looked at Urza. This guy won't tell Lucy all this kind of thing. Face slightly Yuhi avoided Naruto's line of sight, and she coughed softly. I still have a task. I'll leave for a while, let's talk slowly. Looking at the back of her leaving, Naruto shook his head helplessly. Be careful. Well, thanks. Your relationship is really good. Lucy said enviously on the side. I heard Urza say yesterday, Naruto, you are really powerful. So I thought Urza was the first S rank in the guild. As for the mages, I didn't know until yesterday that you became an S rank mages at the age of 12. Also, I heard that Urza and you were childhood sweethearts who grew up together. Hey, Naruto, can you tell me how you became an S rank mage? No wonder you are so popular. It turns out that your strength in the guild is stronger than Urza. Lucy kept 8 trigrams about Naruto, her face full of excitement. Hey, Naruto, what's the relationship between you, Urza and Miss Mirage? I heard everyone talk about you. Quote. Cough cough. Naruto coughed lightly, glared at her, and said speechlessly, if it's all right, I'll go take the task. Wait, you haven't come back to me yet. Lucy quickly chased after him. He came to the task board. Naruto chose some tasks. He was already an S-rank mage, and it was reasonable to say that he could complete the difficult tasks on the second floor. Instead, I want to take a quiet rest, slowly realize the power in my body, and wait for that moment to come. Therefore, he is not in a hurry at all. Besides, he also received a relatively generous remuneration when he carried out the century-old mission, and he is not afraid of running out of money for a period of time. Hey, Naruto, didn't you say you wanted to take my money? Seeing that Naruto seemed to ignore herself, Lucy finally used her trump card. Now you lend me 1,000,000 J. I have no money to spend. Now. 1,000,000. Naruto was stunned, then nodded and said, okay, I can borrow it from you. Although 1,000,000 is not a small amount for him, Naruto can still get it. Lucy accepted it readily, and then she pulled Naruto and shouted, I want to look for a house today. In order to make up for my loss last night, please accompany me to see the house. Naruto was stunned again, and had to nod again. Hee, you're so kind. Lucy jumped up cheering, thinking to herself, Miss Ben is really charming, how could a pervert like Naruto resist Miss Ben's offensive? Naruto was helpless, so he had to accompany her to find a house. Lucy was a newcomer, so it was natural to help her. 674. We really didn't sleep together. However, after an hour of this idea, Naruto regretted it. Lucy traveled almost all over the city, and it was only in the evening that she finally found a house that she was satisfied with. At this time, Naruto had nothing to say. Moreover, once Lucy encountered the landlady along the way, she would use all kinds of girls' trump card to deal with them, and when she encountered the landlady, she pretended to be pitiful. In the end, Lucy finally rented it by a small river in a shopping street near the guild. The rent was 70,000 J a month. Knowing that Lucy was so cheap here, she immediately returned the rest of the money to Naruto. Naruto smiled and shook his head, give it back to me next time. What? I can't make that much at one time. Lucy was startled. I don't have any source of income right now. I can easily spend all this money here. It doesn't matter, there will always be a day when I can pay it back. Naruto shook his head indifferently. This, why do you have to force it on me? Lucy couldn't help but wonder, is Naruto interested in herself? Want to buy yourself with money? Impossible, you are definitely not such a woman. Hey, what are you thinking? After renting the house, clean it up immediately. I won't be with you. I'm tired. Naruto looked at her standing there and looked at himself in a daze. His eyes seemed to be looking at a wolf same. No, nothing, since that's the case, then I'll clean up first, goodbye. Lucy hurriedly bid him farewell. Naruto sighed in relief and turned to leave. It's finally over. Go shopping with girls, no matter what you do, it's a hassle. After saying goodbye to Lucy, Naruto just bumped into Urza who was returning from the mission, and seeing her saluting with a cart, Naruto stepped forward and said hello, Arusa, I didn't expect you to be so efficient in doing the mission. Elsa also greeted him. Yeah, Naruto, I'm going to come back for dinner, by the way, have you eaten? Let's eat together. Naruto smiled slightly, okay. Elsa also had a smile on her face. Then I'll go and put things away first, you wait for me here for a while. Naruto nodded. After a while, Elsa came back here, with long hair of crimson Yuhi color and a suit of silver gray armor. In the setting sun, she was heroic, but there was a hint of tenderness in her eyes. Naruto, let you wait for a long time. Urza came to him and said softly. No, nothing. Naruto had a faint smile on his face. Next, the two went to a restaurant to eat. Seeing Urza and Naruto come in together, the The restaurant owner immediately recommended a couple's dinner to them. When she saw the love food on the table, Elsa's jade face immediately became moist, and she sat there staring nervously at the food, her heart beating wildly. Naruto was also a little embarrassed, but this boss is really good. If he hadn't done this, he wouldn't have seen Urza so cute now. Seeing her nervous and sweaty palms, he couldn't help laughing. The usual Urza is very strong and full of queen temperament. I didn't expect her to show such a shy expression. Suddenly, Naruto thought of something, looked at Urza and said with a smile, "By the way, I have something to give to you. I wanted to give it to you before returning to the guild. I forgot it these days. I'll see you later. Come to my house after dinner, and I'll bring it out to you." What? Urza couldn't help but say, "Why do you still want to go to your house?" "Well, because that thing is very important and can't be easily exposed. If it is seen, it will be a little troublesome. I will tell you in detail when the time comes. Let's eat first," Naruto said. Oh, Urza nodded and started to eat, but she felt as if something was scratching her heart. She was very itchy and very curious. What would Naruto give her? So mysterious. Not. Elsa immediately turned pale, like half the sky was dyed by the sunset. After dinner, the sun had completely gone down, and Naruto brought Urza back home. At this time, Mirage had also left long ago, leaving a note in the living room. Naruto picked it up and looked at it, and it read, "Naruto, thank you for your stay, and the breakfast is delicious, *____, hee. Mirage." He couldn't help but smile. Although Mirage was sad because of Listena's death, at least she was no longer depressed. Seeing Naruto smiling at the note, Urza couldn't help but take a peek. When she saw that it was Mirage's note, she couldn't help but froze for a moment, and then her expression turned cold. This guy Mirage seems to have a better relationship with Naruto than himself. Just so annoying. "Naruto," Urza suddenly called out to him with a serious face, then stared into his eyes, and asked word by word, "Last night, what happened to you and Mirage?" Naruto looked at Urza's serious expression and couldn't help being stunned. He immediately waved his hand and said, "What are you talking about? What can happen to me and her? I'm just staying with her for one night." "But you also said that you made Mirage very tired last night." Urza continued to ask. "Me, tired Mirage?" Naruto felt inexplicable. Where is this from? Yes. Urza's eyes seemed to be suppressing something, making Naruto feel that if he didn't answer well, he might end up badly. "Hey, I really don't know what you're thinking." Naruto sighed. "Mirage didn't have anything to do with me. I slept separately from her, and she slept in that room." He pointed to the bedroom where Mirage had slept before. "Really?" Elsa suddenly walked over and opened the door to enter the room, then leaned over, sniffing around with her nose, and then came to Naruto, leaned over and smelled it. "This is relieved. Well, it looks like you didn't sleep together last night." 675. Scarlet Yuhi. "Of course," Naruto cried. "But Urza is really amazing. Can she smell something just by smell? Very scary. I've heard that women's directness is very powerful, but I didn't expect that the sense of smell is also very strong. Oh, by the way, Naruto, I want to stay at your house tonight." Suddenly, Urza said. "What?" Naruto couldn't help but be surprised. Elsa actually wants to live in her own home. "Why? Don't you welcome me to live? Mirage can stay, why can't I?" Urza blinked. "Ah, but she can't go back to the women's dormitory because she can't go back. Then I broke the bed in my dormitory, and I can't sleep tonight," Elsa said again. "That's fine too." Naruto couldn't help shouting. This was clearly an excuse for talking out of nowhere. Urza can't even lie. "Well, of course, you can go and check if you don't believe me." Urza smiled slightly. Naruto. It is estimated that before he enters the women's dormitory, he will be kicked out by the dormitory. "Okay, then you can live here." Naruto nodded. "Yeah." Urza was satisfied with a happy smile on her face. "Oh, by the way, Naruto, you just said to give me a gift, I don't know what it is. Urza asked again. It's a very good thing, it suits you very well. Naruto waved to her after hearing this, and said mysteriously, come with me. Oh, Urza nodded, followed Naruto to his room, and then watched Naruto take out a scroll from the bedside table in the room, then opened the scroll and spread it flat on the bed. What is this? Urza had never seen this thing before and couldn't help asking, is this a magic scroll? Well, almost, this is a magic scroll that can be used for storage. The gift is in it. Naruto smiled, with a strange mark in his hand, and then reached out and clicked on the scroll. With a bang, a burst of white smoke suddenly rose. Urza was startled, and suddenly felt a special magic wave coming from her eyes. This is... Urza couldn't help but be stunned. What's going on with this powerful magic fluctuation? So pure, so powerful water magic. This feeling is just like the sea. The white smoke dissipated, and then, Urza finally saw what appeared in front of her. Arms. Is a weapon. And it's a beautiful weapon. Halberd. A sea blue halberd with a smooth body like a halberd. The top is a three-pronged halberd, and the tip of the blade shines with the luster of seawater. It seems that there is seawater flowing inside. This makes people feel like a magic weapon. What is this? It feels so special, Urza asked in surprise, is this for me? Seeing the stunned look on her face, Naruto smiled with satisfaction. This is the trophy I harvested during this century-old mission, the Sea God Halberd. It is an artifact guarded by the water dragon, with a powerful force that can dominate the sea. Urza, this weapon is given to you, and you can change out this equipment when you fight in a place with water in the future. Quote. Poseidon Halberd. Urza was shocked. Is this the legendary artifact buried in the sea? Naruto nodded. Yes, this sea god halberd is hidden in the depths of the sea and is guarded by a water dragon. If it wasn't for my mission, maybe it would never see the light of day again. Is this too expensive? I can't have it. Urza couldn't help but be excited. Her face flushed. Yuhi, what kind of temptation is the sea god halberd to her who likes weapons? This is simply irresistible. Although Urza refused, she really wanted this weapon in her heart, not to mention, it was something Naruto gave her. This weapon is only suitable for you. With your dressing up magic, I hope you will use the power of this divine weapon in the future. Naruto shook his head, picked up the sea god halberd and handed it to Urza, saying seriously, I gave you this weapon just to give you more self-protection ability. Of course, this weapon is not at a critical moment, so you can't just take it out. Elsa took it in a daze, only feeling that the object in her hand was as heavy as 1,000 pounds, but seeing the streamlined luster on the halberd and the gentle fluctuation of power, she was extremely happy, and could not wait to take it immediately. Play with it. Urza, put it away if you like it. By the way, this weapon also has the effect of restoring stamina. Naruto said again. Urza hesitated again and again, and finally nodded and accepted the artifact. A flash of light flashed in her hand, and miraculously went to her weapon space. After receiving such a big gift, Urza was very excited for a while. Seeing Naruto, she almost jumped up and kissed him fiercely, but unfortunately, these Urza were just thinking about it. She didn't back then. Mirage had the courage to mess up. Okay, take a shower and sleep. I didn't sleep last night, I'm a little tired. Naruto smiled lightly and urged her to leave the room. With such a beautiful woman sitting in the room, and now it's so late, Naruto can't help but do something wrong on the spur of the moment. Urza nodded, then left the room and went to the bathroom to take a shower. The sound of rushing water came out, and Naruto regretted it a little. If I knew earlier, I wouldn't leave Urza overnight. It's too bad. The sound of her bathing was so loud that even if he stayed in the room, he would still hear it clearly, and he would immediately think about it. Some Naruto who couldn't stand it, simply jumped out of the window, went to the roof, and looked up at the starry sky. The starry sky tonight is also very beautiful, full of stars, revealing countless mysteries. Under the starlight, Naruto was thinking, if he opened up the passage of time and space, Then at that moment in the sky is the star where he is going. Have everyone in those worlds also seen the stars that belong to this world? Ah! Suddenly, a scream came from the room under the roof, and Naruto couldn't help but be startled. It was Urza. The next moment, his body flashed, and he appeared in the living room almost like encountering light and shadow. Only to find that the scream came from the bathroom. What's wrong, Urza? Naruto asked anxiously. Boom! Suddenly there was another bang, and there was an explosion in the entire bathroom, and the water splashed out, almost drenching Naruto's head and face. What's going on? Naruto exclaimed, and immediately, he felt a special magic wave coming from it. It is the magic power of the sea god halberd. As soon as he waved his hand, a gust of breeze blew past, and the smoke and dust in front of him were blown away immediately, and the entire bathroom exploded, and a powerful magic power overflowed from it. And in the next moment, Naruto suddenly widened his eyes. Urza was standing naked at the moment, holding the sea god halberd, her long crimson hair fluttering slightly, with crystal water droplets hanging on her body, and the expression on her face seemed to be in a daze. The tall breasts, stained with crystal water droplets, the two pink yuhi buds on the top are slightly raised, the slender waist, the buttocks that protrude suddenly, and the proudly standing in place and exposed. Out of the mysterious zone. Yuhi color. Crimson yuhi color like hair. 676. Lucis made costume. What's wrong? Naruto opened his mouth wide before he finished speaking, when he was shocked by the scene in front of him. S fruit-eating body stood in front of her, with dripping crystal water Jinchuriki column on her body, holding a sea god halberd, a long yuhi-colored hair fluttering slightly under the energy breath. It was really beautiful thing. What? Urza also froze for a while. When she saw that it was Naruto, she finally reacted with an exclamation, and she actually broke Naruto's bathroom. And his body was seen by him. This is really embarrassing. The next moment, she hurriedly covered her body with her hands, and at the same time shouted, "Turn over. Hurry up and turn over." Naruto came back to his senses, turned around in embarrassment, turned halfway, and suddenly said, "Urza, don't you have dress-up magic? Can't you just change it right away?" I haven't wiped my body yet." Okay." After a while, Urza finally finished wiping her body and put on a suit of armor, sitting opposite Naruto with her legs together. She lowered her eyelids slightly, her face was yuhi moist, and she dared not look at him. "Elsa. I'm sorry, Naruto." As soon as Naruto was about to speak, Urza suddenly apologized. "I didn't mean to, I'll ask someone to fix this bathroom for you." "It doesn't matter. I accidentally saw what happened just now." It's okay." Urza was stunned for a moment, then Yuhi raised her head, looking at Naruto with a twisted smile. "Although it's embarrassing, it's not a big deal. It's up to you." "Really?" Naruto couldn't help but stunned. When did Urza become so enlightened? "I remember that after helping her take off her clothes when she was a child, her reaction was much more intense than this time." "Well, it's just an accident, and it's also my own fault. Who told me that I was too curious, so I summoned the sea god halberd to observe it, but I didn't expect to use a little magic power to make the water in the entire bathroom uncontrollable. This weapon is really strong," Urza said slightly excitedly. Naruto nodded. "This is an artifact, you have to use it carefully. If you're fine, just rest." Urza responded, and said embarrassedly, "You can't take a shower, Naruto, until you fix it. You can only go to the hotel bathroom to take a shower. It's not a big deal, don't worry about it." Naruto waved his hand and left the living room to go back to his room to sleep. Urza also went back to her room and went to sleep with regret. Lying on the bed, both of them lost sleep tonight. Early the next morning, Naruto and Urza woke up almost at the same time. After washing up, they ate breakfast together and went to the guild. Along the way, Urza seemed to be still concerned about what happened last night, and said that she would immediately find a craftsman to help Naruto repair it. Urza is still serious and responsible for things. After the two arrived at the guild, Lucy just arrived. Seeing Naruto, she smiled slightly, and hurriedly ran over to say hello. Good morning, Naruto, I am very satisfied with that house. It's very comfortable to sleep. Thank you for accompanying me for a day looking for it. Looking at her bright smile, Naruto nodded and smiled. When will I come to your house as a guest? Ah, this. What, can't you? Ah, okay. Lucy hesitated for a while and then nodded, thinking to herself, he's a big pervert, can you let him in? Oh right, Naruto, let's go to the mission. I need to make money quickly. It's better to do a big mission. Then I can pay you back all at once. Lucy suddenly said again. Then I ran to the task board to find it. After Urza spoke to Naruto, she also went to accept a quest, and went to do the quest alone. After a while, Lucy suddenly found a task. Sneak into Abar's mansion, find and destroy a book. The bounty is 200,000 J. Lucy took the task book, ran over and shouted, Naruto, I think this task is relatively easy after looking around. Other tasks are not suitable for me now. Naruto, let's do this task. Naruto took a look at it and couldn't help but say, is this task too difficult? Lucy was immediately hit. Hey, I'm not like you or an S-class mage. I'm a rookie who just joined the club. Really? Well, since you're a novice, I'll take you with me. Naruto waved his hand. Cut. It's really pulling. Lucy pouted. After the two checked in with Mirage, they decided to leave immediately. A few hours later, the two took the train to the city where Abar's house was located. It seems to be a bit behind the city where the guild is located, but when the two arrived at their destination, they found that Abar's mansion was very luxurious. There were even walls and a tall castle-like villa inside. It looks like it's hard to get in here. Lucy murmured, how do we sneak in? Naruto pointed to an advertisement posted on the front door. We are looking for a maid. The appearance and figure must be of the highest quality. Lucy looked over, and her eyes suddenly lit up. Naruto, do you think I can apply for a job as a maid? With my charm, I can definitely be selected easily. As she spoke, she threw a wink at Naruto, who was struck by lightning, wiped his sweat and said, it's true. Then, the two quickly bought a maid outfit from the town and asked Lucy to put it on. When Lucy stood in front of Naruto with big playful eyes, Naruto was also stunned. Lucy, who was wearing a maid outfit, had blonde hair tied with two small hair tails on both sides, wearing a white maid's hat. Under the high bulging chest, the small waist tightly wrapped by the black coat looks full of hands. And under the small white apron, the pair of slender legs, wearing white stockings, with a little white skin exposed above the thighs, is simply lovely and charming, making people unable to help themselves. 677. Looking for books. Well, Naruto, don't keep looking at people. Lucy suddenly became shy and coquettish. Are you still shy? Naruto said silently, didn't you like this outfit just now? Really, I'm on a mission. Lucy gave him a hammer. At this moment, there was a sudden shock from the ground in front of the two of them, followed by a bang, and a short, fat man who looked extremely wretched appeared in front of the two of them. Along with him, there was also a row of girls in maid costumes. Naruto, Lucy. Are you Mr. Abar? Lucy stepped forward politely and smiled. Abar nodded, his voice was very obscene. He smiled and said, are you going to apply for a maid? You must know that my maids are the most beautiful people. Can you compare? He pointed to a row of maids with their own characteristics behind him, and looked at Lucy triumphantly, with contempt in his eyes. Then what do you think of me? I can do anything. Lucy had a cute expression on her face, wanting to call Elba. Unexpectedly, Elba squinted her eyes and glared at her, and exclaimed bluntly, you are so ugly. Ugly. It doesn't meet my requirements at all. After he finished speaking, he took his maids back to the ground and disappeared in front of the two of them. Lucy stayed where she was, with an angry and puzzled expression on her face, turned to look at Naruto, and asked excitedly, "Am I really ugly?" "Should be, isn't it?" Naruto said with a smile. "Damn, this guy is obviously distorted in aesthetics. Ah, unforgivable. He actually said that this young lady is ugly. Obviously his maids are the ones." Lucy jumped up frantically, furious. A woman's beauty is criticized like this, and she is really angry. Naruto couldn't help laughing. "I didn't expect that the lovely and beautiful Lucy would be called ugly one day." "Hey, Naruto, how can you do this? Are you laughing at how ugly I am?" Lucy got angry. She grabbed Naruto's collar. Naruto hurriedly comforted. "Okay, don't be angry with this kind of person. Lucy, you are very cute, very beautiful, just like a princess." When Lucy heard the words, she calmed down and asked him with her head tilted, "Are you serious? I'm really beautiful." "Of course it is." "Hee, I think so too." Lucy laughed suddenly. Naruto. "By the way, I can't help it now, what should we do?" After a while, the two discussed under a big tree around the Abar mansion, and Lucy frowned. Naruto smiled lightly. "It's very simple, just sneak in." "Sneak in? Will it be discovered?" Lucy asked worriedly. "Don't worry, I will never be discovered." Then, the two went directly over the wall and came to the interior of Abar's house. As soon as he came in, Naruto was slightly startled, and immediately smiled bitterly. "We have been discovered." What's going on?" "There is a surveillance magic here." Naruto waved his hand, and a magic power washed out, saying, "Although we have been discovered, but now I have blocked this magic. While we are careful now, as soon as possible go find that book." Yeah, Lucy also realized the urgency of the situation. After nodding, just as Naruto said, the two came directly to the floor-to-ceiling windows of the large villa. With a stroke of Naruto's arm, a large hole appeared in the floor-to-ceiling window, and the two entered the villa smoothly. "This villa is so big, it's hard to find a book." Lucy frowned slightly. "Go to the library and look for it," Naruto suggested. Lucy nodded. The two ran all the way, looking for the direction of the library. When I came to a hall, a group of figures with weapons suddenly ran in from outside. "These are obviously Abar's thugs." "Found. They're here. Catch them for me." Abar's figure swooped out from the ground. "You broke into private houses. I'll arrest you and go to jail." Elba shouted angrily. "What should I do, Naruto? These guys don't look easy to deal with." Lucy grabbed his arm and was a little worried. Naruto also frowned, although this Abar doesn't seem like a good person, but after all, this is someone else's territory, and they didn't provoke him, and it's his own and Lucy's fault first. In this case, come on, he's really not good at starting. "Get out first." Naruto suddenly hugged Lucy's delicate body, and after a flash, he suddenly disappeared from everyone's sight. Where did you go?" Abar and others were shocked. At this time, Naruto was running around the villa with Lucy in his arms. Lucy was taken aback. Naruto's speed was simply astounding. It was difficult for her to see the surrounding buildings. After a while, Naruto suddenly stopped. Confused Lucy was let go by Naruto. "This is the library." Lucy was taken aback. "Well, let's hurry in and look for it." The two quickly entered the library. "Wow, I didn't expect Elba to collect so many books. He seems to be a book lover. It's incredible." After seeing the entire huge library, Lucy couldn't help but exclaimed. "You look for it here, I'll take care of you," Naruto said and walked out. "Hey, look for it with me," cried Lucy. Naruto had disappeared from her sight. Outside the library, a group of people are rushing towards this side. Naruto frowned. He had already sensed the aura of the group of people. If he didn't do something, they would probably come here soon. After pondering for a while, Naruto suddenly stretched out his hand and made a seal. Immediately, the entire library was surrounded by a square transparent barrier. He smiled slightly. In this way, As long as he did not touch the entire barrier, they would absolutely not be able to. Came in. 678. Truth. After setting the barrier, Naruto returned to the library. Lucy was still rummaging through the books on the shelf. Looking at the collections, Lucy, who also likes to read books at ordinary times, her eyes glittered, and she kept mumbling something. Lucy, I can't see that you like reading books so much, it's really rare. Naruto smiled. Yeah, I've liked reading since I was a child. I especially like reading novels, and I also. Lucy said with a smile, but she immediately shut up and stopped talking in the middle of her sentence, her face slightly yuhi, and continued. Find it. And what? Naruto continued to ask. It's nothing, I have so many books, so you can help me find them too. Lucy hurriedly laughed and called out a ha-ha urging. Okay. Naruto saw how troublesome it was for her to rummage by herself, so he helped her find it. In the case of two people, the target was quickly found. Sunrise. It's the book. Found the target. Lucy exclaimed with joy while holding a slightly old thick book. Well, then take it to the client immediately. Okay. Lucy nodded, and suddenly a very curious expression appeared on her face, looking at Naruto and giggling. I think it's really good to destroy books written by such a famous author like this. It's a pity, why don't you let me read it first? I don't know when you will go after you finish reading it. Naruto said speechlessly. I have a way. Just use this. Lucy suddenly changed a pair of glasses from her body and laughed. Is this Feng Yang's glasses? Naruto was slightly surprised. I didn't expect you to carry such a magic item. Lucy smiled smugly and quickly read after putting on her glasses. Naruto looked at her from the side. Lucy in the book had a natural beauty. I didn't expect her to have such an intellectual temperament in addition to being lively. She must not be an ordinary girl, right? Naruto guesses. After a while, Naruto had noticed that the people outside the barrier were knocking on the barrier, and the sound of bang 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 kept ringing. At this time, Lucy finally read the whole book roughly. She closed the book, exhaled slightly, and said, if you look at it purely from the text, this book really doesn't look like it was written by a great writer. The text and stories are only average, and it can even be described in rough terms. I don't know why such a great writer would write such a work. Naruto smiled lightly. Suddenly, Lucy frowned again, flipped the page again, and said doubtfully, wait, I found something wrong with this book. Huh, what's wrong? Naruto was also slightly taken aback. This book seems to be set by some magic. Lucy checked carefully. Naruto took a look, stretched out his hand and touched the book carefully, and nodded. This book is indeed set with magic. Lucy, thank you for discovering this. Alright, let's go back and hand over the book to Kirby. Yeah, Lucy nodded. Naruto withdrew the barrier and was about to leave here. The two of them have already trespassed into private houses. If they are not handled properly, it is likely to attract the army. Although he doesn't care about these, it is not good to cause trouble. However, the truth often does not pass so easily. When Naruto withdrew the barrier, Elba and his many men rushed over immediately and surrounded Naruto and Lucy. You two guys, I'm completely angry. How dare you rummage around in my house? Get on me, catch them, Elba shouted, and a group of subordinates rushed up. Naruto shook his head helplessly and pouted. It's really troublesome, Lucy, let's get out of here quickly. Lucy nodded, holding the book in her arms and grabbing Naruto's arm. Naruto stretched out his hand and put his arms around her slender waist, and rushed forward at the same time. He didn't intend to fight these people. With his strength to his level, he really had no interest in fighting these little guys. Therefore, he still used the original method to escape. Do you want to run away after doing such a thing? It's abominable. As soon as Elba's burrowing magic came out, he suddenly chased Naruto out. However, when Naruto took Lucy to the corridor, he jumped straight into the air, followed by a pair of transparent wings behind his back, and he flew into the sky with a whimper. Wind magic, wind wings. Naruto, you can still fly. Lucy exclaimed in his arms. This is wind magic. Naruto nodded slightly. It's incredible, aren't you an ice magician? Besides the ice element, it's not a strange thing to learn the wind element, right? Naruto quickly disappeared from Elba's sight. And Elba and his men could only stare there, but there was nothing they could do. I'm so pissed off. Elba shouted from the spot. Naruto and Lucy flew directly to Kirby's house with the book. In Kirby's huge villa, when Naruto and Lucy handed him the book, he saw Kirby and his wife were extremely excited, and Kirby even burst into tears. Thank you for helping me get this book back. I'll destroy it right now. Kirby was about to walk towards the brazier with the book. Lucy couldn't bear to say, isn't it a pity to burn this book like this? No, this book is not worth collecting. Kirby said firmly. Really, isn't this book written by your father? It's a bit rotten, but it's written by your father anyway. Cried Lucy. Kirby sighed. There is no reason for this kind of bad work to be kept in the world. This is a shame for my father. It's not like that. I think this book has a special secret. Huh. At this moment, when Lucy just finished speaking, the book in Kirby's hand suddenly radiated 1,000 rays of light, and several people were slightly startled. Suddenly, the light filled the entire hall, and then countless words flew out of the book with rays of light, dancing around the crowd. This is... Lucy and Kirby couldn't help but froze. Dear Kirby. 679. Virgo Key. When all the truth was explained from the words, everyone understood, and Kirby couldn't help crying. It turned out that he had never understood his father, but it was only now that he knew that his father had always protected him and loved him. Because of him, he was forced to write such a book, and finally died of embarrassment. And Lucy and Naruto also learned the reason from these words, all because of that Abar, who forced Kirby's father to write this bad book with him as the protagonist, and imprisoned him at that time. Indeed an evil man. An angry look appeared on Lucy's face. Okay, these things are over, now you shouldn't want to destroy this book anymore, right? Naruto stepped forward and said. Yes, this is my father's legacy, and I won't want to destroy it again. However, I will pay you the commission. Kirby wept gratefully. Naruto waved his hand and smiled slightly. No need, this book has not been destroyed. Our mission is not complete, that's it, goodbye. Lucy hurriedly grabbed him and said, why don't we want commissions? Naruto smiled lightly and did not answer, but said, let's go. Ah, why is this? Lucy yelled. The Kirbys were also stunned. Naruto turned his head and showed a bright smile. It's time for you to go back, this isn't your home, right? The Kirbys couldn't help but stay for a while. Along the way, Lucy was brooding about Naruto's giving up the commission. He didn't understand why he did this. The task has been completed, and it doesn't matter whether it is destroyed or preserved. Okay, Lucy, the Kirbys aren't rich, and their house isn't theirs. I guess they must be very poor now, Naruto said to her. How did you know that? Intuition. Naruto smiled slightly. Lucy was speechless. This is indeed the case. The temperament of the Kirbys allows Naruto to know their situation at a glance. Just like the temperament of Lucy, Naruto can perceive that she is not an ordinary girl. However, for that Abar, Lucy was very angry and threatened the writer to create that kind of bad work. This behavior is absolutely intolerable. She suddenly suggested that Naruto should go to Abar's house once and teach that guy a good lesson. Are you trying to come and beat him for no reason? Naruto asked. I'm going to expose that guy. Expose his viciousness to the world. Lucy clenched her fist and said angrily. The sense of justice is good, but there is no reward for this. Naruto laughed. I don't have any money for this mission anyway. If I'm still indifferent when I encounter such unpleasant things, then this mission is really a failure. I'm going to find that guy no matter what. Do the math, Lucy said firmly. Okay, then I'll go with you. Naruto smiled lightly. For Naruto, this kind of thing is just a small effort, but he still appreciates Lucy's sense of justice. Since she likes to do it, let's play with her. Anyway, I have nothing to do lately. The two returned to the Abar mansion again. As soon as they arrived, Abar and the others suddenly appeared in front of the two of them. You two book thieves. How dare you show up on my site? Damn it, return that book to me. Abar said angrily. After he searched the library before, he finally found out what he was missing. The thing turned out to be the autobiographical book that the author had written before. Although it was not important to him, he would not give up easily if it was taken away by others. Humph. Abar, are you embarrassed to say it? We already know all about your shameless actions. The rotten guy who threatened Guy with writing such a book. We will expose your actions and let the army come to arrest you. Lucy pointed at him righteously. What? Abar was shocked. How do you know this kind of thing? That book is all about your bad deeds. You will be punished by the law. Damn, quickly kill these two guys for me. Don't let them leak the news. Abar panicked, waving his hands eagerly, and hurriedly asked his subordinates to rush up. Lucy waved her arm. Naruto. Leave it to you. I'm not your thug. Naruto glanced at her and said. Ah, then I'm dead. Naruto, you can't do this. Lucy screamed in horror. Naruto smiled, then stepped forward and stretched out his arms, the magic of ice frozen. A cold air emerged from his hands, instantly freezing Abar's men in place, unable to move. What? How is this possible? Abar was startled, so many of his subordinates were killed by him with a wave of his hand. This guy is too strong. Yeah, as expected of an S-class wizard. Lucy jumped up excitedly. It's actually an S-class wizard. This is terrible. Hearing Lucy's cheers, Abar broke out in cold sweat, and he bit Kiba. Fight. Turn it on. Virgo. He suddenly took out a key, and suddenly there was a flash of light in the space and time, and a burly figure emerged from the ground. It's a maid with an ugly appearance and a strong figure. It's Protoss magic. Lucy and Naruto were slightly surprised. Come on, Virgo Barugo. So ugly. Lucy was startled, and quickly hid behind Naruto. Naruto raised his head and looked at the gorilla-like figure. Seeing that she was pressing directly towards him, he kicked his foot directly, slammed into the opponent's stomach with a thud, instantly knocking her out. It was kicked and flew out, crashed into a wall with a bang, and could no longer stand up. Okay, so strong. There was more cold sweat on Elba's head. Okay, let's end the farce as soon as possible, we have to get back to the Union before dark. Naruto turned his head and said to Lucy, and then Elba didn't have time to escape, and he didn't see anything Naruto had. Action, he was directly frozen into an ice sculpture. Chilling aura. Weak enemies, even those who come into contact with the chill emanating from Naruto, can be frozen. If Naruto hadn't deliberately let the cold air avoid Lucy's body, I'm afraid Lucy would have been frozen long ago. Not, it's over. Lucy couldn't believe it. Well, go back, I'm a little bored. Naruto said lightly. Okay. Lucy nodded. Next, the two handed over Abar to the local government and exposed his evil deeds, leaving the rest to the government to solve. Naruto and Lucy set off directly to the guild. However, before leaving, Naruto picked up the key of the Virgo Protoss, and because Lucy was a Protoss wizard, he handed it over to Lucy for her to keep. Because Elba is going to go to prison, the Protoss Virgo who contracted with him has also cancelled the contract with him. Now this key is handed over to you, and you can become her new master. Naruto gave the key to Luce in the west. Luce's face was full of joy. Great, although we didn't get the quest reward, we got a key that is far more precious than the quest reward. Virgo is also a member of the Zodiac. 680. Tracking. After a short mission episode, the two returned to the guild. After reporting the mission a little, Naruto planned to go back to rest, but he suddenly thought that his bathroom was damaged by Urza, and he couldn't take a shower when he went back. It seemed that he could only borrow it from Lucy's house. For a moment. After telling Lucy this idea, Lucy rejected him immediately. I don't want it. Men and women can't get married. And you're a big pervert. Lucy turned her head and walked back. Naruto couldn't help being stunned, shook his head with a wry smile, and sighed. At this moment, a clear voice suddenly came from the side and said, Naruto, why don't you come to my house? Who are you? Naruto turned his head, but saw a girl with long green hair, wearing a cowboy hat, with a hint of Yuhi run on her pretty face. My name is Biska. Although we are in the same guild, we don't seem to have spoken. However, I have heard a lot about you. Biska looked up at Naruto with admiration on her face. Expression. Bishka. Naruto couldn't help feeling a little embarrassed, touched his nose and apologized. Sorry, as a partner of the same guild, I actually forgot your name. No, it's fine. Biska's expression darkened, and she immediately smiled. Didn't we know each other now? I heard just now that you were looking for a place to bathe, and my house is just fine for you to use. Thank you then. Naruto couldn't help but smile when he heard it. Okay, then please come with me. Biska was slightly overjoyed, and quickly stood up, grabbed Naruto and ran outside the guild. Lucy hasn't gone far, but she has been listening to the conversation between the two. After listening to it, she saw that Biska actually pulled Naruto to flash, and she couldn't help but think about it. Damn it, this pervert is not going to do something lewd. No way, how can this guy Biska be like this? He has no guard against him at all. Compassion isn't the right way to use it in a place like this, right? No, be sure to follow over there. Thank you very much, because the bathroom at home was damaged by Urza, and I don't want to go to the hotel or the bathroom to wash, so I can only borrow a friend's, but Lucy doesn't want it. On the way, Naruto was talking to Green Hair Beauty Speaks. Lucy, who was following behind, couldn't help but secretly angry. This guy was talking bad about himself. Hateful. Naruto, so you and Urza live together? That's not true, she just stayed at my place last night. Naruto explained. Oh, Biska breathed a sigh of relief. By the way, your magic is the same type of dressing magic as Urza, right? Naruto suddenly asked. Well, Biska nodded. My magic is firearms, and I can change firearms of different strengths. This magic is really good, the power of the gun is infinite. Naruto encouraged. Thank you, Biska said happily. Hateful, how could these two guys talk and laugh so quickly? Lucy pouted and muttered to herself, scolding inwardly, Naruto is definitely malicious. After a while, Naruto and Biska came to her house. In addition to having a house in the women's dormitory, she also seemed to have rented a set outside, and she also came here to live on a regular basis. Although the house was ordinary, the facilities were very clean. After entering the house, Biska gave Naruto all the space, while she walked out of the house and waited for Naruto to come out after taking a shower. Lucy hid under a tree and was taken aback when she saw that Biska actually came out of the house. After a while, Naruto came out of the room refreshed, and after thanking Biska again, Naruto parted ways with her. Nothing happened to these two. Lucy couldn't help but be greatly surprised. Could it be that she was too suspicious? Forehead. It seems so. But then again, why do you care so much about Naruto? After thinking for a while, Lucy suddenly felt stupid. Back at his home, Naruto rested, lay on the bed, and after meditating silently for a while without any progress, he couldn't help feeling a little bored. Now his strength has reached a bottleneck. To break this bottleneck, he must completely conquer the 10 tails in his body. With his current strength, Naruto has been able to fuse the magic of the 5 attributes with each other, and can generate almost any magic, except that the magic of space and time cannot be used, and he is no longer afraid of anyone. Moreover, in the century-old mission of Shillong, he also saw the power of the dragon, but that's it. But now, he must completely control the power of 10 tails in his body, which can no longer be achieved through ordinary cultivation. The fastest way at present is to find an enemy that can rival him and stimulate his own power through battle. Potential, otherwise in the practice without pressure, the progress is really limited. When fighting the water dragon, it was precisely because of this potential that Ten Tails was once again suppressed by himself. It can be said that Naruto's biggest enemy today is himself. Therefore, he is waiting for the strongest force in the world to come. During the previous trip, he learned about the strongest magician in the world, Jareth, the guy who is going to be resurrected in the Tower of Paradise. For this matter, he also went to the address of the Paradise Tower where Urza and the others were at the time, but unfortunately there was no one there. After 3 years of searching, Naruto still couldn't find such a person. The so-called 10 saints in this world, although powerful enough, still did not meet such requirements. Sighing slightly, Naruto couldn't help muttering to himself, "When will we be able to meet a stronger opponent?" With this thought in mind, Naruto fell into dreamland, the depths of the consciousness space. A huge black shadow enveloped half of the sky, and the dim space was filled with terrifying power. This is the energy of Ten Tails.